Are you guys ready for the Nintendo Prime Podcast? Episode 9. Hey everyone, welcome to the Nintendo Prime Podcast. How are you guys doing? Hopefully everything is working. Welcome to a little bit of an introduction to our E3 set. It is not complete. There is one item coming for the set. We're not done yet. There's also some different things that'll happen during E3 that you'll notice every single day. I'm not going to say what it is because it's a surprise.
This is just a teaser.
This is a little teaser, and I know it's not perfect. We know the line up there. You can see part of the white wall. It is what it is. We'll get this stuff sorted out as we get to E3, but we're excited that all this stuff has arrived and things are working as intended. So let's just get right into episode 9 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast by first introducing our special guest who is located behind my big fat head, Mr. GameOverJesse. How's it going?
I am great. Thank you so much for inviting me on here again. It's great to be back on.
No problem, man. And obviously to my left, your guys' right, is Mr. Eric Moore.
Hello.
And I am Nintendo Prime himself. Or maybe, if you watch my other live streams, I get in fights with Nintendo Primes. I'm Nathaniel Ruffle-Jans. Nintendo Prime's that logo right there, and I'm going to smack him around a little bit tonight if I have to. Hopefully things don't go that bad. Tonight we're going to be talking about Skyward Sword HD. We had some new amiibo announced, some functionality with that amiibo announced. That's stirring up a little controversy with some people, kind of reminding everyone what Nintendo said amiibo is, that I don't necessarily agree with, but that is what it is. And then we obviously are going to talk a little bit about Zelda 35th anniversary and what we expect or don't expect to happen at E3 2021, specifically just about Zelda. So kind of look at this as it's kind of like the all Zelda cast right now before E3. And I'll let you guys know we have guests lined up now all the way up to E3. Next week, we're going to have Rule 2 review on the podcast. The week after that, we're going to have 5J Gaming on. You guys, only the old school members are going to remember who 5J is. You guys are in for a special treat that week on June 2nd. Hopefully, Eric's here for that. Kind of up in the air if he's going to be here or not. If he's not, I think I actually have another guest coming on as well that I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Andre again. I have no idea. There was somebody. I got to go through my messages and remember. But I know for sure 5J because he was going to be my backup host. And then just if Eric's here, cool. We're just going to have 4 people here. Right. And we have a special setup for 4 people. It's really crazy, but I'm really excited about it. We will need to make sure that other computer's working to make it work, though.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the June 2nd, I didn't tell Eric this yet, we are moving the podcast on the week of E3 to June 2nd instead of on that Wednesday because we have a special guest coming on. Camelot 331 is coming on, and that's the only day that we can make it. So we're just going to make it happen. If you can't be here that day, it's okay.
No, on the day that I was normally possibly going to be out?
No, sorry, the following week, June 8th.
Oh,
June 8th.
Yeah, I should be here for that.
Yeah, for June 8th. So that's our special, June 2nd is this is what happens. I get all confuddled. That's why there's going to be like a sheet or a little graphic I'm going to be putting out later that has all of our guests up to E3, has our guests during E3, and obviously has our E3 schedule once the actual E3 schedule's announced so I can schedule my stuff within the actual schedule.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Right. No, I just have some work possible conflicts on the 2nd, so.
Happens.
Yeah.
It's called a job.
Yeah, right.
Got bills to pay. YouTube doesn't pay nearly enough to pay Eric. Wish it did. I wish it made enough to pay me. I feel like with all the giveaways I do, the thing makes no money. But that's okay. We got a new member, by the way, who joined the podcast. Thank you so much. If you're watching live, we do this podcast live. Listen to the audio version. It's available everywhere podcasts can be heard. We appreciate it if you go on your local favorite podcast place, whether it's Spotify, whether it's, iTunes or the Google podcast app or whatever, and give us a review. Whether you like it or hate it, we appreciate the feedback. Drop reviews. It also helps our podcast get discovered if you do enjoy it. All right. So, shout out to DragonChi26 for becoming a champion. Welcome to becoming a member of the Nintendo Pride Board of Governors. All right, let's get into the topics here, starting with the news of the last 24 hours, I'd say, and that's Skyward Sword. So, Skyward Sword HD is coming. There's kind of now a double controversy happening with this game. The first one is people thinking it's overpriced. That's been happening since the announcement of the game. Everyone thinks it's overpriced, or a lot of people think it's overpriced anyways. And then on top of that, we just got new Skyward Sword amiibo announced, which, by the way, looks pretty good, doesn't it, guys? Like, does it not look sick?
Yeah, it looks really good.
I mean, it looks like it's one of the more complex amiibos, which is why it's $25. Some people aren't happy about that price, but it's a lot more complex amiibo than the standard ones. So we've seen Nintendo do different price points with amiibo when they're more complicated. So 2 characters on one amiibo, what I would say is more complicated than your average amiibo. So the price point at $25 just for the amiibo itself doesn't really bother me. Does it bother you guys? Just the base price, not considering anything else.
Mm,
Ooh,
no,
there we
it,
go.
it doesn't bother me. No,
No,
I'm good with it.
I mean, you gotta remember, we've seen like what the giant yarn Yoshi one that was huge. That was really expensive. So
Yeah,
they've had bigger ones.
This just
and
shows my
the big Guardian amiibo for Breath of the Wild.
yeah
Yep,
yeah
that one's
the
good
Guardian.
too.
This just shows my ignorance. But what's the normal prices of amiibo?
Like
Generally.
anywhere from 12
Like-
to 15,
Okay, so another $10 for no.
and it's got 2 characters on it.
Right. That's I mean, I could say maybe a little bit. I could say maybe
I
20.
actually have right here. So if you guys can see this,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
$16 for Daruk.
And
right
as
now.
I've just
Current price.
as I was saying that, I looked over and I saw the Banjo Kazooie one, and it was $16 for that.
$16
So
for the Banjo Kazooie one.
yeah. So anywhere between right around $10. I would have thought more about 5 to 8, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They don't make a lot of new amiibo that's not Smash Bros related anymore. So I'm fine with the price. Like, as just a pure collector, like who likes amiibo and wants all the Zelda amiibo, I mean, $25 Skyward. I'm just happy it exists, right? We didn't have amiibo back when Skyward Sword came out, so they have one at all. I'm also we'll get into the functionality of it in a moment, because I think that's where some people have issues with the amiibo and have issues with the price point of the amiibo, because of the functionality it adds. But I think just the base price of $25. We've seen so many variants in prices for different amiibo over the years. I don't think that's a problem. And we'll get into the price of Skyward Sword in a bit, because I feel like we haven't really had the full debate on Skyward Sword HD's price. So we'll flesh that out, because I feel like this amiibo is kind of bringing the price point of Skyward Sword HD back up again. Because if I believe it was $50 at launch, but $60 with the gold Wiimote back in the day. Pretty sure that was the Wii pricing.
I think it came with a soundtrack as well.
Yeah, soundtrack. Yeah, so like that was $60, and now we don't get either of those things.
Mhm.
And they're selling you
get a gold
and they're
Wiimote.
selling you the special Joy-Cons separately.
Yeah.
So like it's
And
kind of
Twilight
one of the.
Princess. Sorry,
No, go on. Twilight Princess. What
I was
about?
going to say Twilight Princess HD. It was $50 for its base, and then $60 for the combo that came with the Wolf Link amiibo.
Yeah. So like what they did with prior ones is they gave you more for spending the full fat 60, and they charged 50. Today,
Yeah.
they're charging 60 for Skyward Sword. Now, we'll get into that in a moment, because what makes this really interesting is because if you're going to charge 60, you expect a lot of changes or new content, and there very well could be. We have to remember, it comes out July 16th. We got something new announced in the last 24 hours that requires the amiibo, but who knows what else is different. Now, we know in the base $60 price, we get the full game, which is more than you can say for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but we won't go down that path again. We did that last week. But you can get 60 FPS, you get 1080p, or 720p in handheld. You can use motion controls just like the original game, or you can now use standard controls. So that could be considered a quality of life improvement for some people that prefer that. So there's that. Okay, there's that on the surface. Now we have the amiibo. So announced along with the Skyward Sword amiibo is what it does in the game, because if people paid attention, I think we talked about it briefly on the official website. It listed amiibo support, which we didn't know what that meant because the original game didn't have amiibo support, and lots of speculations over what happened with Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker, what happened with obviously Breath of the Wild. What are they going to do with amiibo? Well, with the Skyward Sword amiibo, they are enabling basically a teleport in the game, that you could teleport from anywhere on the ground back up to the sky And then if you're in the sky and you scan the amiibo, you could teleport back to the last point you teleported at from the ground. Now, this is notable because in the game, it is set up where there's only certain points on the ground that you can go back up to the sky. Now, admittedly, there's quite a few of these points. I went back through some of my old footage of the game and I realized, okay, there's quite a few points to actually get back up to the sky. Not a ton of points in the sky to get back to the ground, though. There's 4. That's not very many. And that is how the design of the game is. So for everyone that says, well, there's so many points on the ground, but there isn't in the sky. That is a big deal that you can go to Skyloft, be in the bazaar. They mentioned this. Go to the bazaar, load up on items, tap your amiibo, and you're back down to the ground. Like that is, you couldn't do that before. Now, I don't know if you have to take flight off of Skyloft before you tap it. They didn't go that far into it. But in theory, based on how they described it, you should be able to do it right from Skyloft. You've never been able to do that before. And
do that, it'll make upgrading your equipment really quick.
Yes, and that's a big thing. People are talking about, oh, as you're progressing, yeah, but this system has upgrades in it. You have to collect, there's bug collecting, there's potions to make, and you can do all of that stuff in Skyloft. So if you could just go down to the ground quick and like do your thing and then tap up and you're like right in the sky, right by Skyloft, and then you could tap to go back down if you need more supplies, that's really huge. That's a big fundamental shift in gameplay for this game. In addition, this is what's crazy. I didn't think they were going to do this. It's usable in dungeons. Any point in a dungeon, you could tap it and go to the sky and tap and come to that exact point in the dungeon. You could not do that in the original game. There's no takeoff points inside the dungeon to go back up to the sky. I double checked. I'm pretty sure there wasn't. No, there isn't. So that is literally a quality of life improvement that is being withheld behind a $25 amiibo. Nintendo has done this before, by the way. This was their original vision for amiibo back in the day, was we're going to lock stuff behind amiibo to add additional value to amiibo. And I've criticized it every time they've done it, but they've mostly backed off on it over the years, especially during the Switch era. There hasn't really been that much. Like even Breath of the Wild, I think one of the biggest thing locked behind amiibo is like Epona. And you can get horses, and you can get horses just as good, if not better than Epona in the game. So it's more of a nostalgia trip than it is, that. There's like you can get certain costumes and certain items through amiibo. But again, none of it actually makes it better in terms of makes it the game easier per se.
Right. Even the Wolflink companion is optional and doesn't really help out that much.
No, in fact, sometimes he gets too aggressive and then kills you. Because he just runs off and does whatever the hell he wants. So like that's the one thing is the Wolflink companion, but even then, it's almost a detriment to the game because the game is clearly not designed for that companion. At least how that companion functions. So it's one of those, they don't really make the game fundamentally better. They just make it more nostalgic for people. And that's fine. I thought that, adding costumes, random item drops, I felt that's a great use of amiibo. Locking this, a quality of life improvement, is interesting because this is even bigger than what they did when I didn't like this. I think this was in Twilight Princess HD. You could tap the Ganondorf amiibo and like double damage, which basically added a whole new difficulty mode to the game. And I thought that was weird to lock a difficulty mode behind an amiibo. This is even worse than that. This is an entire quality of life improvement that fundamentally changes how you play the game. And it's something that in game could just be a new item with a button press. Mm-hmm. And we've seen teleporting in Zelda before, so it's not like Nintendo hasn't had items that do this. This isn't even a new idea for Zelda. It's just really, really nice to have in Skyward Sword. And of course, I'm going to have a Skyward Sword amiibo because it's Zelda. Mm-hmm. If this was a different game, I probably wouldn't buy the amiibo. I'd buy the game, but not the amiibo. And yeah, we'll be giving away some of these, at least one, maybe 2 of them or so during E3, because these things will be hard to get. And I think that's the other thing on top of it is this quality of life improvement slot behind a $25 amiibo that is going to be sold out at launch, guaranteed, because everything these days is sold out at launch. Scalpers are going to be scalping the hell out of it. Now knowing there's a quality of life thing behind it, that makes the amiibo more valuable. Mm-hmm. So even more likely to be scalped. And a lot of legit consumers are going to have a very hard time getting their hands on this quality of life improvement, even if they were willing to pay $25. Mm-hmm. And now some people are going to say, well, go buy one of those cheap, empty card things and illegally put scanner chips on it and do all. Yes, of course, there's workarounds to all the amiibo. That's besides the point. Those are unofficial and technically breaks the TOS of amiibo. There's actually been, Nintendo's already legally taken out a bunch of places that were selling things that preloaded amiibo on these like cards and preloaded them on different coins. Nintendo's been going after these companies because it completely breaks TOS. These coins, what people are doing is technically not legal, but they're doing it because it's so impossible. There's limited runs of amiibo, so amiibos don't stay in print forever. And then on top of it, some of them are just impossible to get. Like this one's going to be so hard to get if you don't get a pre-order in. I'm basically, there's the criticism of this is $85 to get the full functionality of the game. This assumes they don't have other stuff locked behind other amiibo. So $85 there. And on top of that, it's something that's going to be hard for, I think, an average consumer to get. People that want to pick up Skyward Sword HD in person and like would nab the amiibo at GameStop or Walmart, they won't have any. They're going to be sold out. So what are you guys' thoughts just on this amiibo aspect and locking this quality of life improvement behind it? Let's go to GameOverJesse here on this one.
Yeah, I don't think it should be $25 for just this one thing. If it was similar to the Wolf Link from Twilight Princess, to where it not only does it unlock function with the game that it was originally made for, but it also has something that carries over to the next Breath of the Wild, then I think maybe they could justify it being $25, especially if it's something really good in Breath of the Wild too. I've always imagined like my dream amiibo function would be allowing you to ride a Loftwing over the Breath of the Wild's version of Hyrule.
That would be awesome.
I could see something like that being worth the $25, especially with it already giving you this function in Skyward Sword. But then, like, if you're in the middle of playing, how annoying is it going to be like, oh, I forgot the amiibo over there. I gotta go get it so I can get to the sky faster. And then, like, yeah, it just seems odd because you're in the middle of playing and it takes you out of the game to reach over, try to find the amiibo, tap it, set it back, and then go back to playing. But that's how amiibos work anyways. It just, yeah. But that's my thoughts, basically.
Eric, what do you think?
To lock an actual like quality improvement like that behind it is kind of crappy. What I really would have liked to seen is, and I know I may get flack for this, but would be really cool to see like different colored Loftwings, and the one that you purchase, you can actually have that color Loftwing in the game.
Oh, right?
So like if you wanted a green Loftwing, you could buy a green Loftwing amiibo, or a purple, or because I know you got your red and blue, right? Those are the two main colors, correct? Zelda's and Link's
Zelda's
red and
blue, and then Link's is the red one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So then the different colored like Loftwings, or materials like bugs. It gives you bugs. It gives you different materials, so you don't have to do as much fetch questing. Things like that would be understandable behind something like this.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a quality of life improvement.
Now, I actually have a thought on this. I think GameOverJesse had a thought on this as well about potential for this amiibo's use in Breath of the Wild 2 that might really make it feel valuable. But we'll get into that in a moment when we're talking about stuff at E3 and the Zelda 35th anniversary, because that's going to get into a whole speculation and or rumors and or things we're hearing about for Breath of the Wild 2. But I will say that the idea of this amiibo being $25 to paywall, like just set the amiibo aside, $25 for this quality of life improvement on its own is way too much money.
Well, I mean, you get more DLC for less money.
Oh yeah, you could pay for a fighter pass for Smash Bros. And get more content. You could pay for the entire Breath of the Wild DLC combo pack and get all the DLC for this price point. You could get let me try to think. Any of the Fire Emblem Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, any of the Warriors game DLC packs are all around this amount of money for everything. Like guys, remember when it was like $20 for the Mario Kart 8 DLC back in the day to pre-buy all of it? Like that's what they're charging here for access to a quality of. Now, yes, you get the amiibo, and I think we all kind of agreed
Mhm.
on its own. If you're just buying a little collectible statue of of a Princess Zelda and her Loftwing, okay, like that, we don't have a problem with it for that, and that is a value add for that 25.
Mhm.
But it's locking something away. And someone in the chat mentioned that maybe Nintendo, they don't think Nintendo's being malicious. They're just trying to add value.
Mhm.
And this is something I've been arguing about Amiibo the whole time. Hasn't Nintendo merchandise and collectibles already proven they sell on the fact that
Right.
people like collectibles?
Yes.
Look at pop figures. So, like, if Nintendo thinks they need to add value to justify charging $25 or to justify releasing the Amiibo by locking quality of life improvements, then Nintendo's missed the boat on why their Amiibos sell. This Amiibo was going to sell out without this.
Mhm.
Period.
Even if you go back to like Link's Awakening, it gave you that whole new create a dungeon type thing for
Yep.
free. It wasn't locked behind anything or anything.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
going back to Twilight Princess, I think a lot of people may prefer what it did with its big amiibo function, which is giving you a new dungeon to kind of run the gauntlet through to see how many hearts you can keep after beating it. To where this, like, if this gave you some sort of similar dungeon to where you go through it as, well, in this case, you can't transform into anything, but if you just go through like a new dungeon as normal Link, I think a lot of people would prefer that over just being able to warp back and forth to justify it.
Yeah, I honestly think they're pushing the envelope here, and it's good to have backlash because we always think that Nintendo doesn't listen. Like Reggie infamously said, we don't listen to any of your feedback anyway, so what's the point? He didn't say it that bluntly, but he was like very much like, you fans can say what they want, we just don't listen to them. And
I mean,
it was very interesting
but
when he said that, but
to a
they
s-
had a similar issue with a feature in Mario Maker 2 that was kind of locked away behind something, and fans backlash and backlash and backlash, and they finally unlocked it in the base game. So fan backlash has proven with Nintendo that if there's enough people saying that this should not be locked behind, especially with how hard this thing's going to be to buy, then Nintendo might go back on it and toss it in a future update to the game.
Mhm.
And with you talking about quality of life improvements, they went back and added the better version of online multiplayer to Super Mario Party for free.
Yep.
They
Right.
didn't release a new amiibo that would unlock it. It was just a free download.
Right.
Yep.
But that there is some speculation that could be leading into another Mario Party game, though, right? At least that's our thoughts.
Well, yeah, there's rumors out there about a new Mario
Yeah.
Party and how this might have been, the online might have been a test
Right.
for the new game. And we'll see.
And it
Hopefully
may
we see
not
at
be
E3.
because I'm just saying it just may not be because of backlash. There is possible.
Well, that
other reasons.
particular one, but Mario Maker
Yes.
2 was,
Oh, no,
was
right,
clearly
right, yeah.
from backlash.
But
Um,
to a certain extent, though, Reggie is kind of right. I mean, Nintendo, they generally make their money, and yeah, could they probably make more money? Possibly, but they do all right. So, when they do something, do they really have to listen to the fans? I mean, it's nice when they do, but they're gonna make their money.
well, yeah, they absolutely don't have to. So
Well, that's
it,
the
no, go on.
I was gonna say, well, that's kind of the thing is like if they pay attention to a certain number of people, for every 1,000 people that like something, there's 1,000 more that don't like it. Or
Mhm.
if you see a bunch of people that don't like something, then maybe that's just like a giant vocal minority to where they're talking about it, but everyone that's okay and fine with it sees no reason to mention it. So then the only thing you see is the negative stuff when 90% of the people actually like the thing.
So
it's
let's get into what makes this more upsetting, I suppose, right? There's a reason that people are more upset about this than maybe prior times. If you guys remember, there was an entire thing locked behind in Metroid Samus Returns that pissed people off. That was they locked an entire mode in the game. It was ridiculous. And here's the thing. What makes people wonder about this, because this is such a fundamental quality of life improvement for collecting. It's a quality of life improvement for crafting in the game and gear upgrades, fundamental quality update in terms of, making dungeon running a bit easier. If you're running low on stuff, typically, hey, you're in a dungeon, you're running low. you got to kind of push through because it's a pain in the butt to backtrack and get out of here and go all
Playing
the
the
way
Skyward
back.
Sword dungeons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what makes it, I think, more upsetting for people right now is, as far as we're aware, as of today, there is no fundamental changes within the game to the game itself that makes it better beyond doubling frame rate, up in the resolution, and then making the controls adaptable to the current controls on Switch. Which are, sure, those are great changes, but they don't add anything to the game itself. There's not new content. You think about prior games, they added new stuff. Even in the Wind Waker, which I feel like may have had the most minimal content additions. In fact, you can argue it removed content because it got rid of the Tingle Tuner and all the quests behind that. But at least they did add like message bottles and other things in the game that, they added technically a first person mode that wasn't originally part of the game. Not very many people are aware there's a first person mode, surprisingly. I'm actually shocked every day more and more people that play the Wind Waker HD didn't realize there's a first person mode because they've never really had that in a Zelda game before. It's a limited first person mode, by the way. It's not, you can't just run around freely. Maybe you can. It's been a little bit since I've tried it out. I wasn't a fan of it, but I've also always played Zelda a certain way. But they at least did experiment with a few things there, and the quick sale, of course, that was one of the biggest quality of life improvement upgrades to that game. Right now, we don't know of any new content, any improvements, any significant upgrades that we couldn't already get for free on an emulator, other than them upping the price to $60. So you have that $60 price point when prior ones were $50. When you paid $60, you got extra stuff. So that already doesn't look very good. It feels like they're taking advantage of the Switch being popular. The Wii U wasn't, the Switch is. So let's take advantage of that popularity and Zelda's current popularity. And then the most significant change that we're aware of exists is locked behind a $25 amiibo. And I think that's where people are upset because it's not as if we're getting a bunch of extra stuff for that $60 in the game as far as we're aware. We might be. Plenty of time to announce it. But as of today, we know of nothing new in Skyward Sword. If you play Skyward Sword HD, it's fundamentally the same game as you played on Wii. That's as far as we're aware. And I think that's what makes, like, if there is improvements, if there is new items, maybe they even added a whole new dungeon. That would be crazy. They haven't done something like that yet, but let's say they did. And they did that too, by the way, but way back in the day. You guys remember Link's Awakening DX? They added the color dungeon back in the day. That was a dungeon exclusive to that version of the game. Wasn't in the original Link's Awakening.
A Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance have another dungeon, or am I misremembering?
It had that other mode. It had 4 swords. I don't know if it had a new dungeon though. I'd have to go back and look at that. But I know it had 4 swords, which was obviously packed in with it. So like, it's interesting to me because they're charging $60. They're charging this the same price that they charged Breath of the Wild at launch. But they're not making fundamental changes. And it looks even worse when you're coming off of, we just got 3 games from Mario, 3 of the best games ever for $60 that basically had the same thing happen. They didn't up the frame rates, but they did up resolution and they did adjust controls where they needed to. Like Galaxy in particular had to have some of their controls changed to work with traditional controls. And they also made one of the games widescreen in Sunshine because it wasn't originally widescreen. Those changes are basic bare minimum changes you need to make the games look nice. And they charge $60 for the 3-pack. Now it's a limited 3-pack and you can't buy it anymore, but that's besides the point. It was $60. Now, here's our next remake, our next HD game is also a game from the Wii era that was less popular than Galaxy, being sold for you for more money on its own with less changes than any other game got. Like, what was the last $60 one? Pikmin 3 Deluxe? They added all new missions with Olimar, right? All new missions with Olimar. Then you go back, oh, what did they do with Xenoblade Chronicles? Oh, they just like remastered the entire game. That's a pretty big deal. Not to mention new content. They added a whole, I just, why are they, here's the thing. Let's start here. Do we think there's more to Skyward Sword HD than's already announced? Let's start there. Is there more to it that we don't know? Because that makes a big difference on the price. Because, again, a couple months out, they might be waiting. I don't know why they're waiting, but they might be waiting. What do you think, Eric? Is there more
Uh,
changes to it to justify the $60 price point? Because right now it feels like you got to pay $85 to get all the features,
Right.
and
Well, and that's not saying that they don't drop more
nice.
amiibo with more stuff behind them.
Yeah, it's true.
So, you could be looking at 100, 150 by the time they drop 3 amiibo and put something behind each one.
So I did hear people, or I did see people on Twitter and Discord saying that Nintendo said this was the only amiibo
Okay.
for Skyward Sword. I don't know if that means the only one
Well,
far,
Yeah, right.
or
it might
what?
be the only one, only new one. Doesn't mean there will be functionality for other amiibo too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's true, then okay. Yeah. But, I'm hoping there's more. What? I don't know. But I would not also be surprised if there was not.
What do you
Is
think?
kind
What do
of
you
where I'm
think,
at.
Jesse? Think there's going to be more changes to the game?
I think there will be. Even if it's something, I don't know if you would count it as small or a big change, but something akin to Twilight Princess when you had to collect the Tears of Light and it shrunk it down from
Yep.
like 16 to just 12.
Yep. Quality
Maybe
of
they
life
do
improvement.
something to make the
Dowsing?
spirit realm or the
Mhm.
silent realm a bit easier.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
a tough part of the original game, guys. If you haven't played it.
Yeah, so I think maybe they'll do something to just make that a bit easier. I don't know what they're called, the Guardians, the Watchers, whatever they are. Maybe they'll slow them down or make it harder for them to see you somehow, or who knows. But I could
I
see
would like
them
to
doing
see.
something like that.
I would like to see dowsing improved on.
Yeah.
That was a really annoying part of the game. Which, by the way, you can pretty much completely ignore dowsing for most of the game, anyways. But if you want to 100% it, you gotta douse. And it's for those who don't know what we're talking about. We
I
don't
think
need
it
to.
only forces you to do to find the key quiz.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. That's like the only time. That's basically teaching you how to douse.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And for those who don't, it's kind of like if you guys ever, if you don't know what dowsing is, like in real life, you could take like a Y stick and you can kind of use gravity to kind of figure out potentially where there's water underground. It's kind of a similar thing in this game where it's not really gravity, it's motion controls with your sword and it like lights up and buzzes and like lets you know where there's certain stuff underground. Um,
Funny thing about that, as ridiculous as it might come across to some people, someone being able to tell if there's water or something underground by holding a stick and walking around, a lot of oil companies actually pay people tons of money to walk around the land and like just for that extra reassurance to see if there's oil or liquid beneath.
there's actually science behind it and why it works. I learned about it way back in Boy Scouts, actually, way back in the day.
Oh,
Why that works
awesome.
as a survival technique when you're stuck out there and there's not a fresh water source around. Not that it's going to be necessarily easy to get to that water. It might be really hard to get to it, but anyways, we obviously have more advanced techniques today with certain technology that can scan a little better. But yeah, I'd like to see that improved in the game. I think that's a fundamental improvement. That would be nice to see, but
Do you have any
again,
ideas of how it could be improved?
I don't know. I honestly don't know because I find the whole mechanic to not be very good. I mean, just eliminate it and give us
You
a different way to find
Kind of
things.
put in like a Breath of the Wild, like the shrine locator, where if you're close to something, the closer you
Oh
are, where
yeah,
you kind of,
like one of those masks,
yeah,
like
Yeah, the Korok mask,
Korok
or
mask.
even the Great Fairy mask and Majora's
Right.
mask.
Yeah,
yeah. But the shrine indicators where it kind of beeps.
yeah,
the
that's
longer you
that's
get
another way up.
where you
Yeah.
get closer to something.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, I
mean,
would. I think if it was something just as simple as not forcing you to go in first person mode and hold the sword up, like if you could just do it while running around normal, then it would be a lot better. And
yeah.
that would just be like a really simple change.
So personally, I don't think there's going to be any of these changes that we're hoping for. And it feels weird. I think the most obvious one is where you talked about in like the Sacred Realm stuff. Like I think that is an area in dowsing, but at the same point, I have a feeling that and by the way, we don't know what studio's handling this at all yet. We have some guesses. Tantalus, potentially could be Grezzo. We don't really know. Could be the Zelda team. We don't really know, right? We're all just guessing at this point until we see a logo appear somewhere in some trailer besides Nintendo. We're left
Yeah.
we're left guessing at this point.
For all we know, it could have been the team Monolith Soft got put together
Yeah,
for.
could have been
It could be
Monolith. Like
anything.
we have no idea. It could be internal. It could be external. It could be a brand new team. Could be Panic Button for all we know. We don't know who did it. Okay, we have guesses because we know what companies have done prior ones.
Mhm.
Basically, Grezzo, Tantalus. Those are like the two big ones that have done prior ones. But we don't know. So I have a feeling that that's it. I don't think they've made any fundamental changes at all to this game. I think we're getting it as is. I think they purposely chose to do it as a lazy port. Now, I do think that one, I know the term lazy port gets tossed around too much, but I'm calling it this because everything they're doing can be done in an emulator besides what's locked behind the amiibo. That required actual development time. What we've seen so far in the game is all stuff that fans have been doing to the game for a decade. So, I don't think they've really done anything. And maybe that's just me being cynical, so I'm really happily surprised when they do something, and then I overreact to being really happy about that.
That tends to be my route of things.
Well, it's
expect less.
so yeah.
Be happy when you-
Expect less, then you tend to get more than what you expect.
Yeah.
And that's
Do you remember? Sorry.
no, go on.
Go ahead.
No, look, listening to you guys talk, it reminded me of all of the changes they did to Majora's Mask that no one liked, like completely changing all of the boss fights, adding the giant eyeballs and everything.
Yeah, and there's a point like that you can go too far.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even like the eyeballs, that was, I mean, guys, that was a huge fundamental change in Majora's Mask 3D. If you haven't played the original Majora's Mask, like those giant eyeballs, I know, right? That's been like a classic in Zelda, giant eyeballs. And you're going to see that in Skyward Sword. There are some bosses that have giant eyeballs. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not how every boss works in Zelda anymore. And Majora's Mask fundamentally did not work off giant eyeballs for like any of the bosses. And then they made it that way, making the game much easier. But my biggest gripe with Majora's Mask 3D was the change to swimming with the Zora Mask. They borked it. It was already basically perfect. And if you guys know about swimming in video games and underwater, it's usually not fun. It's usually not good.
Yeah.
It's good and fun in the original Majora's Mask with the Zora Mask. They made it not good and not fun in Majora's Mask 3D. Nobody knows why they did it. We understand why they made the water temple easier and that had some more things that guide you along. I get that. Water temples, they're infamously difficult because you can get disoriented pretty easy because of all the water. Things start to look very samey, especially when you have to go underwater. But I didn't mind that, but the changes to actual swimming, I never understood why they did that. Now, since I don't think they're going to make any changes, it does make me think, some people are going to be out there, well, okay, Nate, so you're complaining about the amiibo price and having stuff locked behind it. You're complaining about the price of Skyward Sword HD. All right, are you going to do what you should do and not buy it?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to buy it now. I'm going to buy it day one. I'm going to be streaming it on this channel. So, like, here's the
I'll
problem.
probably be buying two.
Yeah, like this is the problem is they got me by the balls because of how big a fan of Zelda I am, and this is why Nintendo continues to get away with this stuff.
And also another reason why Reggie was right.
Yeah,
because they don't have to do a whole.
They don't
lot.
have to do it. This thing's gonna sell millions.
It's gonna.
I don't know how many millions. Maybe 10, maybe 5. I don't know, but it's gonna sell millions of copies, especially because you guys saw a recent video I did. I'm fairly certain that Skyward Sword is going to play an important role in Breath of the Wild 2. That was from Samus Hunter, who didn't specifically say that Skyward Sword was going to have something to do with Breath of the Wild 2, but told some of the reasoning on why we're getting Skyward Sword before we're getting the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. And supposedly, according to Samus Hunter, it's because Nintendo thinks it's very important, for some reason, that, one, we know the origin story of the whole series, because Skyward Sword is the origin story, that we are introduced to certain characters, and we're introduced to certain story elements and certain story items. Why? Why does it matter if we're introduced to any of that? Because if you played Breath of the Wild, there is a reference to Skyward Sword in Breath of the Wild, a very, like, what the F reference that you're like, whoa, what do you mean that thing talked to you?
Mhm.
That came out of nowhere. Because
it really does come out of nowhere.
like you do not expect it at, and it's like, oh man, okay, let's go. What's happening? And like, because he was like, oh, you see references to Skyward Sword all throughout it, the goddess statues, but like, okay, what? That's a huge reference to put in the story of Breath of the Wild, but nothing ever really comes of it the rest of the game. my thought process is connecting those dots that what happens in Skyward Sword is going to have some sort of connection directly to Breath of the Wild 2 and some events that happen there. Some people have said, oh, does that mean that's not Ganondorf that we saw in the trailer? It's Demise. I don't know. Okay? I can't tell you. I know the headdress and the drool, all of that feels very Ganondorf-ish. But then again, Demise came before Ganondorf. So who's to say Demise can't have that stuff on him? I have no idea. Okay?
Maybe Ganondorf got it from.
Yeah. Well, again, where did he even get that stuff from?
And we've even seen other random characters that aren't even affiliated with Ganon transform into Ganon, like in A Link Between Worlds when Yuga turns into Ganon. So Ganondorf zombie dude could turn into Demise instead of Ganondorf, or could be possessed and used as, I don't know.
And I don't want to spoil. Yeah. No, you're on the right path there. I like that. Like, the thing is, I don't want to spoil too much because I know there's a lot of you watching right now that never played Skyward Sword.
Mhm.
You're gonna be playing it for your first time. Yeah, I mentioned Demise, and you're like, "Who the hell is Demise?" Okay, I don't want to tell you. I'm just saying that there's a potential it plays a big role in this game. Potentially, don't know, but it might not even be that. It could just be other things that actually link back to Breath of the Wild, but also back to Skyward Sword coming back. There could be a lot of crazy stuff here, and I feel like. At this point, this is where we get into what's going to happen to the 35th anniversary. What are we going to hear about Breath of the Wild 2? We'll start with Breath of the Wild 2 because that's the game everyone's most excited about in general. You know, we could debate all day about is Skyward Sword HD worth $60, whatever. We know Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be because it's a brand new Zelda game. So, couple things I want to touch upon. Do we think the amiibo from Skyward Sword is going to have a unique functionality in this game? Maybe similar to Wolf, maybe similar to Epona. And what does that functionality be? I'm going to throw this to Jesse because I already know he has an idea that I totally agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but the Loftwing amiibo, since the very beginning when we were all, just imagining what Skyward Sword HD could be before it was officially announced and what possible amiibo functions could come, because Twilight Princess HD had such, whenever they first mentioned it, it had such amazing potential. Oh, you get Wolf Link here. And a lot of people remember when Breath of the Wild was first mentioned, they said they didn't want you to think of it as a multiplayer game. So then some people were thinking, could you play along as Wolf Link while the other person plays as Link? But that's getting a bit off topic. But just the potential there. If you take that potential and you bring it to Skyward Sword HD and Breath of the Wild 2, then if it allows you to get a Loftwing, or maybe there's already Loftwings, but it unlocks the Crimson Loftwing that belongs to Link, that's supposed to be really rare and special, because I think the original hero had a Crimson Loftwing or something like that, and maybe, who knows, like, that's just my dream fantasy crossover function between those two games with the Loftwing amiibo. And I really like the idea that you mentioned earlier about having the multicolored the multicolored Loftwing, kind of like how they had the multicolored Yoshi amiibo as well.
Yeah, and obviously in that dream scenario, that kind of infers there's flight in Breath of the Wild 2, which we have gliding already in Breath of the Wild 1. So is it technically there is flight, by the way, with an abuse of mechanics in Breath of the Wild 1.
And there's even the part where you're sailing across with not Rivali, but Tiba.
Yep.
Tiba, whatever his name is, to get to the Divine Beast.
Yeah, so there's already a close enough to flight thing to example. And some people have, wouldn't flight break the game? I don't know that it would really break the game. I know that you could argue if, it breaks climbing, right? Because you could fly. They could put in some limitations or something. Like you have to jump off a high cliff for flight to happen. Like you can't just take off with a bird in the middle of a field. You have to be on higher ground. That could be a thing. So then that forces you to still have to climb. Maybe flight's only usable in certain situations, certain areas. Maybe there's a whole sky world that's going on that we don't even know about, and that's where all the flight is. There's a whole bunch of different ways they can introduce flight. It doesn't have to be with Loftwings. It could be through a different mechanic, but then Loftwing is a bonus way to fly if you have the amiibo.
The idea that I thought of to kind of limit the whole, it takes the fun out of exploration is one, you've already explored 99% of Hyrule except for what's already going to be changed. And they could make it to where, like Epona in Ocarina of Time, she acted like she was too scared to cross the bridge to go into Hyrule, or too scared to go into the Lost Woods or Kokiri Forest. So it could be to where the Loftwing just turns around if you get to an area that you're not supposed to go to yet, or an area that's not been explored or unlocked on your map, like when you use the Sheikah Towers. So it could be something like that.
Yeah, and for people wondering, well, you mean, what about Flight? There is rumors galore, or speculation, I guess, not rumors, speculation that in that reveal trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, that potentially Hyrule Castle is about to go skyward. We don't know if it's going under. We don't know if it's going up. It's moving. That's what we know.
Yeah.
And
And
it
it's
moves.
the
It moves in a
concept
way
art.
that reminds people of an event in Skyward Sword, which is why people think it might be going up. And if it's going up,
Yeah.
what's the chance we're going up to?
How else are you gonna get there?
So that's another
A
reason why some
beanstalk?
people think Flight is going to be involved in some way, potentially to return to Loftwings. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with
No.
that. I think that's a very
No.
that would be nice added functionality if it you could still fly in the game, but this is just an additional way to fly.
Yeah.
Mm.
No,
I like
Nate.
that.
No loft wings, only giant cannons.
Only
Yes,
giant
only
cannons.
giant cannons.
Oh my gosh, that
Yes.
reminds me of what, Secret of Mana? They travel across the map shooting you out of cannons.
No. Mario 64.
Mario 64 too, yeah.
Hey, jump in the cannon,
Well,
shoot
hey,
yourself, and fly
I'm
across. Yeah.
sorry. I played a game that predated Mario 64. My
Yeah,
bad.
no, I know.
Am I too old school for
Yes.
you guys? God. My second favorite game of all time is cannon travel. Come on. You literally
Isn't
hop
there a
your boat
Zelda
into
game that had a
cannon.
giant beanstalk though?
Yeah, Beanstalk. Well, yeah. There probably was. There's probably been several games.
Maybe Minish Cap.
Wow, everything in Minish Cap felt giant though.
Oh,
That was
bring
kinda
bring
cool.
back the magic beans from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Oh,
If
there
There
we
you
go.
go.
that'd be the way.
That's how you get to.
That's how you get up
Castle.
there. Little
Yeah.
elevator
Beanstalk.
ride on a leaf. Have a good
Yep.
day.
Yep. There. I was only joking, but this actually could work.
Someone's gonna be like, "Look, the same mechanics from Breath of the Wild there, are right? Okay, cool. Oh, do we have an ability that's kind of like Magnesis? Okay, cool. Do we have Atrox balloons? So cool. You guys fly with a new method.
Right.
I'm breaking mechanics and flying my own way. I'm taking a one of those carts, one of those little coal carts, all the way up to the sky.
Mine cart to the sky.
Yeah,
Mine cart. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
slabs of metal with a minecart on top of it.
Yes.
Yep. So besides that wishful thinking functionality, I obviously think it'll drop Skyward Sword outfits
Mhm.
and random items, just
For
like all
sure.
the other amiibos. But this is like in a dream scenario where there happens to be Flight. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Bring Loftwings back like you brought Epona back.
Mhm.
Maybe there are Loftwings, but it brings Link's Loftwing. Right?
But then again, is this going to be another functionality again that we're going to be complaining about because it's locked behind a damn amiibo?
I don't get. Okay, so as long as you can already fly in the game, I'm not going to complain because it's not replacing what the game does.
Right.
It's just like a neat reference, like Epona.
Right.
You don't need Epona in the game.
Right. Yeah, if they go that route, then yes.
There's other horses. You're fine. But it's neat to have that reference in the game.
Right.
Oh, I have Epona, that horse I remember.
So yeah, maybe like Jesse said, it unlocks the Crimson.
Yeah, so I said, like, what if Loftwings are actually already there?
Yes.
Which would make sense. And again, that would be a huge Skyward
Mhm.
Sword thing. And then here you go. You just get Link's old Crimson one. Because
Right.
that was a
Yes,
unique
yes.
Loftwing.
Okay, that'll work then.
God,
Yes.
I feel like
Even-
spoiling too much of this game.
Even if Breath of the Wild 2, like the base game didn't have the Loftwing, but then the DLC pack, like the Champions Ballad and everything, had
Right.
a Loftwing at part of it, just like the original Breath of the Wild had the Master Cycle
Mhm.
in the Champions Ballad. Even something akin to that, to where you don't necessarily have to buy this amiibo, that even if you have the money to go get it and you're willing to buy it, you may not be able to find it anywhere. So even if you can't do that, then you could still purchase it as part of this larger
Mhm.
a DLC pack.
Also, guys, they put the Master Cycle in Zelda officially. It's canon. So anything's possible at this point.
A Master
I expect
Cycle,
to fly a plane this next game.
Master Cycle
Yeah.
amiibo.
Dude, can you imagine
That's-
Can you imagine dog fights?
Oh,
Dog fights in Zelda?
hey,
That'd
Yeah.
be sick.
on Loftwings.
That-
No, the Loftwings are all
The-
angry, so you're shooting the Loftwings
Oh,
from
God.
your
Oh man, imagine them just rushing after you like the cuckoos.
Oh my god, the cuckoos. Oh man. Oh man. Direct
Another
descendants
thing
of each other.
is with the master cycle. That's another thing that I bring up when someone mentions that a Loftwing would completely take away exploration. It's like
Yeah.
one, Nintendo already lets you warp anywhere that you've already been to by going to the Sheikah Towers. Two, in the DLC, they give you the Master Cycle to let you just speed through everything. And three, it gives you an item to where you can literally place it anywhere you want to constantly go back and forth to any specific location. If those don't take away
Right.
exploration, then I don't know what does.
Yeah, and guys, there's stamina in the game. They could have, like, if you think about the horses, right? You can only hit them so many times before they slow way down. It's possible that, hey, Loftwings could have stamina too and can only fly for a certain amount of time, and then they have to land. So like, there's ways to limit this that's gonna encourage you. Like, think about it: horses, master cycle, make zooming across things really great. But how many of us got off those damn things and climbed and just found shorter paths by exploring?
Yeah.
That's still going to be a thing just because you can fly for a little bit. And there could even be a cooldown, right? Like, maybe don't break the Loftwing, but have
That's
it,
actually
like,
a really
you can't
good
use it
idea.
for 5 minutes, right? Like, there's 5-minute periods where, okay, you were flying for 5, now you're done for 5.
But they have to make sure that they absolutely scream that it's available. Like, you know, they did with the champions powers in
Those
Breath
champions
of the Wild.
powers.
Yeah, they have to absolutely yell at you that it is ready to go.
Well,
Blah blah blah.
Going
Is
off,
ready to go.
going off of what Nate mentioned, being able to limit it, similar to the horse, even if it gives you just three, I don't know what to call it, like flaps of the
3
wings or
flaps,
whatever,
yep.
then maybe it takes off and gets as high as Rivali's scale would normally get you, and then it'll glide downward just like the normal paraglider does, but every time you press the button, it flaps the wing and makes it go up higher. That way you can use it to fly around, but you're only going to be flying for like
So
maybe
far.
30, 45 seconds at the most.
So again, there are ways to handle this, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. I've been kind of glancing into the chat as we go, and there's been a lot of really great discussion going on. As always, we have a wonderful community that's really passionate about video games, Zelda, Nintendo, pretty much anything. I just want to give you guys a shout out. I know I've seen a lot of people commenting on our set. Yes, guys, this is essentially the E3 set. There's going to be there's one item for the set that's not here yet. And there's something special that happens during E3 every single day that we're not going to reveal to you right now, because I want it to be a surprise. I want you guys to be shocked when it happens. And obviously the
back
sets
walls fall down and it reveals you're actually in Hyrule.
Yes.
Just wait. And I know the set isn't set up completely perfect. This is our first dry run of it. And yeah, we have the ticker going on. We'll see if we keep the ticker or not. I kind of like that. And yeah, if you're wondering back here, all these items, these are items for the giveaway during E3, and that pile is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is just the physical items. I don't even want to get into my spreadsheet of digital items right now. Okay, let's just not even go there. I can barely look at it. I get so lost in game codes and eShop codes and just codes for, I don't know. Maybe there's a code in there to get all the Korok seeds without having to go get the Korok. No, there isn't. But
That'd be interesting.
Also, I got to give a shout out while I stopped here for a moment to acknowledge a chat. We did have a couple super chats come in that I just wanted to bring up. Gibbs did a $5 one earlier, mentioned a good Ganondorf theory is real. Very interesting on the good Ganondorf theory. Possible. It's not, you know. I'm not gonna dive. We're not gonna deep dive into the theories on that to that level today, but I do have plans in a post E3 world to, especially in the lead up to Breath of the Wild 2, to have a all theory cast, which I'm gonna try to grab every Zelda theory YouTuber I can, and we're just gonna blow your minds with a whole bunch of stuff that probably isn't real, probably isn't legit theories, but we're gonna do it anyways because that's what we do. GameOverJesse knows all about it. Been covering this stuff for years, been doing theories forever. Can't wait for an all theory.
The thought
cast.
you just had.
Yeah.
I want to say, I know I'm interrupting you.
No,
but
interrupt me.
Yeah.
The idea you had, keep it in mind. Remember it.
Lock it in. Lock
Yeah.
it in. Is that a leak? Is that an exclusive leak from GameOverJesse right now?
No, it's just a good idea.
Oh,
It's just a
uh-huh.
good idea.
Uh-huh. Just like Monday. That happened Tuesday.
That was one day off. I didn't.
Yeah.
That's just what I was told.
I'm just saying he was one day off, but it was Zelda related. Now he's telling me to lock in, and I'm saying the hints are abound when it comes to GameOverJesse.
But
Never
that's
know.
what all
Never
my-
know what
my
he's
channel is all
what
about.
he's kind of bullshitting, or when he's kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna give you a legit hint, but moving on.
Yeah.
We also had a super chat come in from Taker610 for $5, who said, "You have to refuel the loft wing like the Master Cycle. Here are some ancient screws, yummy yummy. Beam-based dishes provide extra jet-like thrust. All
Nice.
right, get the hot peppers
Nice.
in there too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There
The
you
spicy
go.
peppers.
But that goes in reverse.
It goes in reverse. And Eric asked, thank you for the $5 as well. I'll get to your comment in a moment because we need to now talk about overall Zelda 35th anniversary stuff. Okay, we talked a lot about speculation on the Skyward Sword's possible involvement with Breath of the Wild 2, but let's get to the 35th anniversary in general because Eric asks us a very great question, and he wants to know specifically from GameOverJesse, since he seems to be the originator, as far as I could tell anyways, having followed this closely, of the talk around this. Because he wants to know, is Ocarina of Time HD real and when?
Grezzo would be the most likely company to be doing it. They have
Agreed
a history
there.
of always working on a Zelda game. They have never not been working on a Zelda game as far as their
Since
history.
since the
timeline
first game.
shows.
Since the
And
first one.
every at the all of the past anniversaries. So the 25th anniversary, they released 2 or 3 games. At the 30th anniversary, they had 2 or 3 games, and now it's the 35th anniversary. So if you take all of that in and you look at the games that have yet to have an HD remake, then it says yeah. So that's just the facts. Not taking any speculation or rumors or anything like that. That's just laying out the facts.
So now, what about the rumors? That's what people want to know.
The rumors is there's been some other leakers that have been told to expect Ocarina of Time. I think the person that said to expect Wind Waker and Twilight Princess just recently also said to expect Ocarina of Time. It was a few weeks ago.
Are we talking about Jeff Grubb?
Was it
Jeff-
him? From
Jeff Grubb was the first person who said, he just definitively said, God, this was like 3 weeks ago. He definitively said, we're getting the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD on Switch. It's happening.
the person I'm thinking of said it like literally the day of or the day after the Nintendo Direct that happened in
Okay.
February or January.
Sure. Okay.
Um,
I'm trying to figure out
that
who it was.
person, yeah. So that person recently said to expect that to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And I know before that there was a few leakers that said to expect Ocarina of Time, and then it was like a week or two before that, in an email, someone who was going over Breath of the Wild 2 stuff told me that they had seen Ocarina of Time stuff, but not Ocarina of Time HD, just Ocarina of Time for Switch stuff. And Nate, I think you mentioned on either your podcast or mine about how some of the games, whenever they're completely redone, I think you used Link's Awakening as an example, they don't put HD after it. They
Mhm.
just give it the original title. Was that you that mentioned that?
Yep.
Mhm.
For Zelda in particular, yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
it's a one game example.
Yeah.
So, I
oh
mean,
yeah, but
But it was Grezzo, and that's the thing. Like, if Grezzo's doing it, a logo that just says Ocarina of Time, that kind of makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors out there about this. Now, personally, and this is where we're getting like, how do we think the 35th anniversary is going to be handled, right? So, like, okay, Skyward Sword dropping in July. So, like, what's next? Okay, well, I still firmly believe that Breath of the Wild's coming out this year. Samus Hunter confirmed to me that she heard at the very beginning of this year that 2021 is the date, and it was one of their final games of 2021. So think November, December, somewhere in there. So their holiday game, which, okay, if it's coming out, it be in the holiday game along with Pokemon somewhere in there. And she mentioned specifically the reason we don't have a release date for Pokemon is because that release date was contingent on when Zelda's coming out, because they don't want to overlap them in the same week.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Okay. Big releases, you're going to want at least a month, if not 3 weeks apart. Got it. All right. So that's according to Samus Undernote. She said she hasn't heard anything since then, but as she's mentioned in the past, when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2, kind of like mum's the word at Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Mum's the word. Like, they'll leak other things maybe, but they try to be pretty quiet about that game, because that's like a fireable offense game.
Oh,
Put it that way.
I'm sure they have plenty
You
of.
tell someone, oh yeah, we're working on Mario Maker 2, or we're working on a new Super Mario Party. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But you tell people details about Breath of the Wild 2, a very story-driven game. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, like we've kind of talked about in the past, that they have these things kind of split up well enough that they can find the kind of the parts of the team that are working on this specific thing that makes it very easy to narrow down or completely just go, this part of that team is gone, and you don't want to screw other people over, so you're going to kind of keep your mouth shut.
Well, my thought process is, too, if you think about all the leaks, all the rumors we've had over the last couple of months, because there's been a lot, none of them have been like necessarily story details or about really heavy story driven games. You think about the Kirby stuff. That's not even a leak. They factually said they're working on a new Kirby game and they're trying to make it the greatest Kirby ever made. Okay, that's factually a thing, but then we don't know really much else, right? We're hearing about Donkey Kong. Don't know anything really about it. Is it 2D? Maybe. Is it 3D? Maybe. There's conflicting reports. Who really knows? Hear about new Mario Party. Hear about a new Mario Kart or Nintendo Kart or whatever it is, some sort of new racing game. Okay. But none of those games are story driven. So like you hear, oh, those exist. Of course they exist. Cool. But Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is a story driven game.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few Nintendo has where story is a big part of the leaks. And, you know, we have had, you know, some probably fake leaks come out that even mention the story. Hello, Breath of the Darkness. Let's just say pretty obvious that that's a fake leak. I don't know that we've ever had a Zelda title officially leaked before. Have we? I'm trying to think back. I'm asking GameOverJesse. I'm trying to go back in my memory. I don't think a title's ever leaked in the history.
As far as I can remember, Skyward Sword didn't.
No.
Twilight Princess didn't. Wind Waker didn't. Majora's Mask didn't.
Breath of the Wild didn't.
Ocarina of Time didn't. Yeah, Breath of the Wild didn't.
Even on the
A Link to the
lanyards at
Past
E3, that was all about Breath of the Wild. They just said The Legend of Zelda. They didn't even let the lanyards create a leak.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been covering Zelda, guys, for like 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
20.
Yeah, because right up
years.
until the names, right up until the official names released, A Link to the Past was Zelda 3. Ocarina of Time was Zelda 64. Wind Waker was New Zelda or GameCube, whatever it was. Majora's Mask was Zelda Gaiden or Zelda DD.
Mm-hmm.
Twilight Princess was they called it The Legend of Zelda. Tentative title was like the official name that Nintendo gave, and then Skyward Sword was Zelda Wii. And even that people thought was going to be related to Twilight Princess because the original artwork that had Fi standing to Link's back with him turned around, it was in the Twilight Princess art style, not Skyward Sword. And then, yeah, I don't think a title for Zelda has ever leaked.
Yeah, so when you hear leaks that has the title, be very, very skeptical that it's like 99%. If there's a title in it, it's fake. If there's story details, it's probably fake. The only time I remember even story details really getting out that ended up holding some weight was back when I worked at Zelda Informer. We broke a story about, and again, this has to do with Skyward Sword, so I don't want to spoil the story for you guys. But we broke a story about some of the high school like drama that happens in that game between Zelda, Link, and Groose. And none of that was actually talked about at E3. But we had a person there on the
Ooh.
show floor that year who got to talk to one of the employees at Nintendo of America and asked him a question out of nowhere, and the employee just literally opened up and told him, "You can't say who I am, but this is like here's some details I know that I've worked on." And it's like that came from a guy working the Nintendo booth, and you're like, a lot of people working Nintendo booths, you're like, okay, those are mostly just
Mhm.
people they hire for the event.
Right.
They only know about the demo.
There are a handful of actual Nintendo
But there are
employees.
actual Nintendo employees in the booth as well. They usually aren't going to be the people you get to interact with, though.
Most of the people they hire are male and female models.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Our friend Holly, who's been on your podcast, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she has a couple of friends that have been booth people for
nice.
Nintendo on a few different years.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So this is one of those situations where I feel like, okay, so an actual Nintendo employee that's on the floor, because they are. And if you're wondering who the Nintendo employees are, they're the ones that are walking around in the background not talking to anybody. Because they're the ones kind of making sure people are doing their job.
Mhm.
That's basically what they're doing. They're not there to talk to people. But
yeah. Or they're speed
we had
walking
someone
to an
talk to him,
appointment.
and people doubted at the time, because again, when story details had never really come out before. People doubted it. The game came out, and like Zelda, that was when Zelda Informer blew up as a website when I was running it. We blew up over that story because nobody else had it, and it turned out we were right, and it gave the site so much credibility. And I'm like, don't ever expect this again. We got super lucky.
Yeah,
like,
right.
this doesn't happen, okay? I don't know why. Maybe they were a fan of the website. I have no idea, but we
Maybe
got
they were
very lucky.
planning on-
And I'm guessing that employee may not
They-
work at Nintendo
they
anymore, if I had
We're
to
probably
guess.
planning on quitting within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe. maybe they had a new job on the line, and they're like, yeah, we don't really care.
Yeah.
Don't put my name out there, because I don't
Right,
want to
right.
be like
Just in
associated.
case
'cause
something
then I
falls
might lose my
through,
new
but-
job. But
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the few times I remember anything ever getting out. Otherwise, it's fun to talk
Mhm.
about the title leaks. It's fun to talk about the story leaks. I sometimes do it, and I tell everyone right away, this is like 99.9% fake. Possible it's right, but it's probably not. But it's fun to talk about it, because we have a game of Breath of the Wild 2 where we don't know anything or don't know much. I mean, and those entire videos out there, everything we know about Breath of the Wild 2, and it's basically, here's the trailer, and then here's some faint quotes over the years that are so vague. They don't really know what they mean. So like, we don't really know anything more than what's in the trailer, and then what's in the trailer is still 99% speculation.
Yeah. I think the two main E3 quotes from Al Numa and other people was that it was going to be darker than Majora's Mask, the darkest Zelda game.
Darkest Zelda
and
game
it-
was one, yep.
A lot of the developers took a lot of influence from the new Red Dead Redemption game. And it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, that game is so different from Zelda. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, what? Are we
Yeah,
gonna have
like-
realistic footprints in snow now, or something that compresses the snow down and stays there the whole game?
At least with Breath of the Wild, when he said it took a lot of he took a lot of inspiration from Skyrim, you knew what that meant. Like two adventure RPG-ish games, you can see where Zelda or Breath of the Wild went from Skyward Sword being so linear to being so open like Skyrim. So you get that. But what does Red Dead Redemption what does that
Guns?
mean?
Are they
Riding
adding
around on a
gunplay?
horse?
The only thing I can think of is there's a lot of
Western?
interviews. Yeah, that exactly. There's a lot of interviews back with Ocarina of Time, with Link getting Epona and Lon Lon Ranch, and then the minigame section where you're shooting all the stuff in the old Kakariko village or whatever. There's a lot of interviews where they talk about how big of a fan of American Westerns Miyamoto is. So that's the only thing that I can think of that relates from Zelda to that. So maybe that means Miyamoto might have a larger role with this game, and he wanted to take inspiration from a Western. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe they introduced guns into Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Twilight Princess had a
Mario now has
bazooka.
an arm cannon.
Yeah, and
In-
Twilight
in Mario
Princess
Plus
did have the bazooka.
Oh, yeah, can't
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
And plus we had that whole Link's crossbow training. So I'm I don't
yeah.
really know.
like sniper
So
training.
Zelda's 35th anniversary E3.
Hmm?
What do we think is actually going to get talked about? Are they going to drop everything there? Like because if you think about it, when they announced the 35th anniversary of Mario, they gave us everything. They just dropped it all. Boom. There's the bombshell. Here's everything you're getting during the 35th anniversary, plus additional merchandise that we're not really going to talk about. We didn't know there was going to be 2 pin set runs. That was kind of a surprise, but that might have been because the first one was so popular they decided to do a second. Who knows? But for the most part, we knew every game that was coming out. We knew, right? We
You count Mario Golf?
No, I don't count Mario Golf as part of it. I think that was just a standard. They were always going to release it this year. It has nothing to do with 35th anniversary.
Okay.
Kind of like I feel like Mario, what was it? Paper Mario last year. I think that was just a standard game that was always going to come out last year.
Well, the thing with that was there was a lot of people said that it leaked, and then because it leaked, Nintendo announced it early instead of along with the thing. But
Well, there's also stories
who
that
knows?
the 35th anniversary was going to originally be at E3 last year, and then it didn't happen. There's a lot of what ifs last year, right? A lot of we don't really know because COVID really messed everything up. But do we think they're going to drop everything they have at E3? Yeah. Do we think not that they're not going to have future directs and talk about more things and advertise the games more. Like I clearly think they're going to have potentially a Zelda focused, maybe even a Skyward Sword focused something happening in July to help push that game. But do we think they're going to drop the whole bomb like they did for 35th anniversary of Mario? Or do we think we're going to get a couple things? We're going to see Breath of the Wild. We're going to see more Skyward Sword. Okay, that's kind of obvious. We're going to see, I don't know, maybe a Zelda 35 or something. And that's it. Or do we think they're going to drop the bomb? And we're going to get like 20 straight minutes of Zelda goodness that's full of a bunch of announcements. The Ocarina of Time, the Majora's Mask, the Wind Wakers. That's why, with a tentative release slate plan over the next, 6 to 10 months. What do you guys think? Someone take the reins on this. Come on.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Okay. I think we will get more on Skyward Sword, obviously. I think we will get a good amount on Breath of the Wild too. Not
agreed.
Too much. Maybe like a trailer and then a tiny bit of gameplay or some details
I
with
wonder if
Aonuma
there's
standing there saying it.
Question. Do you think there's going to be a demo played by Treehouse? That's like that was a huge thing that pushed the first game. Now, there's no playable demo publicly, but I'm saying, well, Treehouse.
I had like 4 hours of that at E3.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think we're going to get more about Breath of the Wild 2 than we've ever gotten, more than just a teaser trailer. But it's kind of like, if they have a playable demo, that's even if just by Treehouse, I mean, that alone probably means at least an interview with AJ Anomaly sitting down while they play the demo, and that's going to give us details. I'm just like, do we think they're going to play the game at E3?
I could see it
because that makes a huge difference in the coverage. Like they could drop a trailer and a few details and then be like, yeah, but we're going to play it later on Treehouse, and that's where we get the interviews. That's often where we get the nitty gritty, and that's what I find interesting about this E3 is it's not in person, but they're still in media week. And I'm wondering if all the outlets are going to get a chance to interview like Shigeru Miyamoto, Eiji Aonuma, and all the rest during that media week to drop those interviews after E3. Because those interviews always are where we get so many details that people don't even pay attention to half the time because they don't realize how many things they actually fundamentally talk about in those interviews during E3. It's so
after
much.
thinking about it, I think there's a good chance they will because Pokemon will kind of stick to their own thing, and other than that, Nintendo doesn't really have any other big games
that we
to
know
talk
that we know
about.
about.
That we know about.
All right, go on then. Go on. So Breath of the Wild 2, okay?
Yeah. So Skyward Sword stuff, and then Breath of the Wild 2 stuff. One remake or remaster, like Ocarina of Time or whatever, and then maybe after, so we get like a hint at the next remake or remaster, and then after Skyward Sword releases, then you get another direct or announcement, kind of like what they did yesterday with Skyward Sword's amiibo trailer, or the Age of Calamity, where they just announced it on Twitter, and it'll be for more details on whatever that Ocarina of Time HD or whatever it's going to be is. But then it'll also be the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask, and then after Skyward Sword, then the floodgate will kind of open up, and then it won't be all through this year, but then maybe 2 remakes or remasters come this year, and then 2 come early next year, January or February. And that's how I see it. And then maybe even that weird, crazy, who knows what's going on with the crazy Zelda mobile phone thing that they said they were going to do.
Yeah, a while ago. Hopefully that's still going on. I mean, I prefer normal Zelda, but they have entire teams dedicated to mobile. So
yeah, and I think that would be released around the same time Breath of the Wild 2 would release. That way, because Breath of the Wild 2 would be the biggest thing to build up hype and popularity for Zelda, and they would want to release the mobile game when it would be the most hyped and most popular. That way, it could kind of feed off of the hype from Breath of the Wild 2.
I have a different take on that.
Okay.
I think they're going to release the mobile game months before Breath of the Wild 2. Look at all the other mobile games that they released. All of them came months before new games came out. So, if you line up their releases, it's kind of like Fire Emblem Heroes, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Mario Kart Tour, potentially a new Mario Kart game coming. So I feel like if they're going to drop that app, if it's ready, of course. The big thing is it even ready to go? But if it is, I feel like
and then
that could be like a drop that happens during E3. They could literally just shadow drop the app right during E3. So I feel like it'd be more like that, because if they're just talking about Zelda, everyone's going to be hyped just seeing the Breath of the Wild 2 stuff, seeing Skyward Sword, drop the app, give people something to play right now, right this second, right now on your phone during E3, which maybe I should prepare for that, because right now I don't have a setup in my setup to stream my phone playing the game.
Yeah.
God dang it. So now I'm going to have to add another more complication to my setup on the off chance Nintendo drops a mobile game during
Better
E3.
to think of it now than scramble to try to do it during E3.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to be like, okay, guys, you see this? Let me hold my phone up and play it looking through the camera.
You could do the thing where you emulate a mobile phone on your computer.
Yeah, there's ways to do that, I know. But I have a very complex setup to make that work.
Okay.
I could, in theory, run this other computer through my other capture card. But the Switch is going to be running through that too. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be, it'll be insane if I have to try to play a mobile game during E3. But
yeah, right.
That's my thought on that anyways, is that they're going to drop the mobile game during E3. I don't know that, again, there's no evidence. They haven't there's one reference to this thing that exists in the entire world, and they haven't said a word since.
Nice.
People are like, wait, there's a Zelda mobile. Yeah. They mentioned it once. What was this, last year? Something like it was a while ago.
It was at least 3 years. It was before Animal Crossing came out, because they said they were going to start on it after Animal Crossing.
Yeah. And that was a long time ago, so it could have got canned. Maybe it's just taken that long to make. We haven't heard about it since, and that happens a lot. We hear about things. Hello, Wii Vitality sensor, and then we actually see the physical thing, and it never comes out. So it's one of those things that it could just be like those patents that are out there. Just because Nintendo patented it doesn't mean anything's going to happen. So Eric, your thoughts? What do you think they're dropping at the 35th? Are they even going to say Zelda 35th anniversary? Let's start there.
I want to say what they're gonna do, what I think they're gonna do, not what I'm necessarily hoping they do.
Let's go with what they're going to do, and then go with what you hope.
Right. So what I think they're gonna do is obviously the 2 that we talked about: Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild 2. And then what I think they're gonna do is on the day that Skyward Sword, or right in that time period, whether it's depending on what day of the week that is, because they'll do basically a Zelda Direct where they will announce the rest of the stuff. Basically, they're going to say, they're going to show Skyward Sword, they're going to show Breath of the Wild, and then say tune in on X date for more information of Zelda stuff to come. Is what I'm really thinking they're going to do. Which will suck, because I mean, I'm starting to get into this. I'm starting to get on the hop on the Zelda train. So, having these games available will be the sooner the better.
Mhm.
But what I think they're gonna do and what I hope they're gonna do, I think are gonna be are two totally different things.
Two totally different things. Okay.
And sorry, let me also. I also think that once we find out how long Nintendo's presentation is, that also might be some indication on, whether they're going to talk about it or not. Because if they have a gigantic time slot, then yes, I could see them talking about the 35th anniversary. If they have, just, like half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, they may not want to spend all that much time dedicated to talking about just the one franchise. So I think it also depends on the length of time of Nintendo's presentation as well to see whether or not we can, have the presentation of the 35th anniversary in there as well.
Okay. So I'm just going to go the opposite of everyone. They're dropping the bomb. And I'm not trying to be disingenuous and get people falsely hyped for this, because I'm always going to expect we're only going to get what we know. And that's in my mind, my basic, we'll see Breath of the Wild 2. We'll see Bayonetta 3. We'll see, I don't know, maybe Metroid Prime 4. We're just going to see games that are already announced. So that way, when other stuff is announced, I'm not maybe caught off guard because of the rumors and leaks, but I'm happily surprised. So this is the cynic in me being just like with Skyward Sword, not thinking there's anything different. It's like, hey, I'd rather think that way internally, but I'm going to let my hopes and dreams come out, because the last 35th anniversary they blew us out. So until they stop doing that, I'm just going to expect them to blow us out again. See the phone app. Drop the phone app during E3. Breath of the Wild 2. Big blowout, big feature on it. Big feature on Nintendo Treehouse coming this year. We get, obviously, a little bit more of Skyward Sword HD, because I don't think there's going to be much new. I don't think they're going to touch about it much, but I think they are going to mention, specifically when they're talking about Breath of the Wild 2, that they're going to show something about Breath of the Wild 2 that's directly connected to Skyward Sword, and they're going to mention that on screen. And by doing that, that alone is the biggest advertisement to buy a Skyward Sword HD that can exist. That you need to play it to understand this that's happening in Breath of the Wild 2. Boom. That's the big ad for Skyward Sword. They're not going to need to show a lot of Skyward Sword. So, but they will show it. They will touch upon it. They'll at least be in a tease for the 35th anniversary. They will have a 35th anniversary logo. That's like a given. They are going to have something for Nintendo Switch Online. I don't know if that something is going to be Zelda 35, but something they're going to announce that's going to come later this year, maybe October-ish, somewhere in there, kind of like they did with Mario 35. Actually, they exactly did that with Mario 35. It was like October 1st of last year. Then I think, okay, so what about the other games that are floating? Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD. Those games are coming next year. Those games are dropping, I think, as a combo pack in February. And they're going to argue we can do this and charge $60 for Skyward Sword because we already HD'd and re-released these games. So it's even more minimal work to bring them here. So we're going to justify packaging them together and giving them to you next year. Now, I'm going to time of Majora's Mask. This is where I break hearts. Don't think they're actually being remade. I think Grezzo, though, is working on a unique, brand new top-down Zelda game that will get teased. Will get teased at E3, but it won't be coming out during the 35th anniversary. They will tease it and say, hey, Zelda exists beyond the 35th. Be sure to tune in next year, 2022. And it's going to be like a late 2022 or summer game or something like that. I don't think the game's going to be ready in time, but I think that's what Grezzo's been working on. People might think I'm crazy. Grezzo just did Link's Awakening. They also were the main developer behind Triforce Heroes, which is a unique Zelda game. So I think they will be working on a unique top-down Zelda game after Link's Awakening that's not quite ready, but they want to tease it. They want to let people know we did not forget about top-down Zelda during the 35th anniversary.
They recently had that hiring for the Unity engine that people speculate is Zelda as well.
Yep. So again, I think they're going to have something unique there. I could be wrong. They are like the Zelda remake studio, but or remaster studio, whatever you want to call them. But still, I think they're going to get a lot of freedom after what they did with Link's Awakening and be allowed to make
Mhm.
their own top-down game. And they're going to essentially become the top-down Zelda team because there isn't one
But
anymore at Nintendo, as far as we're aware.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say that's what they did with Capcom, to where they started out doing remakes or remasters, and then they were able to do Minish Cap.
See, things are lining up. This is the possibility. Now, this doesn't mean that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are going to be forgotten. They're not going to be. In fact, I don't think other older Zelda games are going to be forgotten as well. I think Nintendo's announcing the Virtual Console changes at E3, and they're going to kick it off by at the end of the Zelda anniversary saying, "Hey, we are going to re-release Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but we're going to release them in up-resed versions through our brand new Virtual Console." And then they're going to burst into that as like a segue out of the 35th anniversary announcement. And then they're just going to get people even more hyped for everything else going on. It's not just Zelda. And they'll start off by saying pretty much every Zelda game ever made is already here, right here in Virtual Console. Not everyone. They won't have like Wii or GameCube or stuff like that, but everything through like 64.
Mm-hmm.
And including handhelds up through the 64 generation. See if they go Game Boy Advance. It'd be nice if they did. Get some Minish Cap out there and all that. But yeah, that's like a mega hype expectation to even think that Virtual Console thing is real. But until Samus Hunter starts getting everything wrong, what do you want me to do? Samus Hunter said 1, we're getting Zelda news before E3, something small. 2, we're getting Zelda amiibo. 1 tweet from Nintendo with a trailer. Boom, both of her things were right again. Just another check on the Samus Hunter list. She's got so many checks next to things she said. I counted the other day. With this included, that's now 65 things she said is going to happen in the last 9 months have happened. 65, guys. At some point, this isn't a coincidence. You can say, oh, that was easy to guess there'll be new Zelda amiibo. Oh, it was easy to say there'll be something new Zelda before because we're supposed to get the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity DLC. You're right. But it ain't so easy to just casually do this 65 times. I'm just like, at some point, you're either the greatest guesser in the world or you legitimately are getting information.
We knew Skyward Sword amiibo was coming. We didn't know if it was going to be at E3 or not, and we didn't know if it was going to be. If it did get announced, a lot of people assumed it was just going to be a tweet with like an image or something.
Yep.
Not a full trailer.
Yep.
So,
and
even I didn't.
And she did say Skyward Sword HD before it was announced was going to be the first game announced for the 35th anniversary. It was the first game announced. Now they haven't said Zelda 35th anniversary yet, but she did note that they aren't going to say it when it's announced. They're going to say it in June. I think she was referencing E3. So we'll see. Again, we'll see what happens. I'm just saying, for some reason, everything she says is right. The only thing that people kind of look at is, oh, she said E3 announcement was on the 6th. No, go read her tweets. She didn't say we were going to get public announcements on the 6th. She said internal documents are going to start floating around for E3 on the 6th. And based on where she gets her information from, it would make sense that her people wouldn't know the plans necessarily. I can't dive into where her source is from.
I don't even think Nintendo has their E3 plan set yet.
I think that's BS at this point, because when we say they don't have their plans set, 2 weeks is media week. 2 weeks is interviews. 2 weeks is showing games to specific massive media outlets to do additional coverage during and after E3. They can't not have it set in stone, but in 2 weeks we're doing interviews and giving you game demos to play in 2 weeks and not have things set in stone. I think it's all set. I think my theory is the reason we haven't heard is, and I've said this before, is because we don't know when Microsoft's is, we don't know when Sega is, we don't know when any of these companies are, because I think it's being announced by the ESA. They're announcing the whole lineup at one big announcement. Then each company will do their individual like additional tweets, like, oh, like Nintendo's going to be here and they're doing Treehouse here, and then Nintendo will come out and be like, yeah, join us for our thing, and then they'll tease like where we're going to have Breath of the Wild 2 showing up, and then be sure to come to, you know, our Treehouse time that, you know, ESA announced, and like because we're going to have like, you know, a tournament here or something. Like there'll be additional teasing from the companies, but it's going to be announced by the ESA. That's my theory, because this is an event 100% ran by the ESA. And look at how we've gotten the announcements for E3. They announced the initial companies in. Then they did announce we have even more companies joining. Then they announced we have hosts for it. Because remember, this is an event put on by the ESA. We always look at, oh, Nintendo Directs. No, the ESA is putting on this event, and Nintendo is part of the event. So they have hosts for it. Then they announced the E3 app, where, we can go on there and, possibly get additional screenshots. Basically, the press kits is what it basically sounds like. Like we usually could get online. You'll be able to get them right through the app, and stuff like that. Which, I'm going to be honest, the E3 app's always sucked. But, I mean, if it's a convenient way to get the press kits, I guess that makes it somewhat useful, especially for people that aren't sitting at a computer to log onto the press websites. Plus, not everyone knows how to get on them. They're really easy to get on during E3. There's literally a universal name and password that just gets shared around and anyone can get access to. But the general consumer doesn't know that. So I think this is why E3 says, no, we don't want you to draw attention away from our app announcement. We don't want you to draw attention away from our host announcement. We want to announce everything because we're the ones putting on this show and you're paying us to be in our show. Because I guarantee they had to pay for these time slots. So
If they have
that's why I think the ESA is going to announce it. Now, Square Enix jumped the gun. We know what Square Enix is because they jumped the gun. But they did it over a month ago at this point. They announced the day and time they're doing it. Really, really out there considering nobody else has announced. So Jesse, I appreciate your opinion. Why do you think that it's not locked in? What's your thoughts on this? Because my whole thoughts is it has to be locked in. We're 2 weeks away from Media Week.
Third-party stuff with like smaller indie devs and everything, like the whole sizzle reel stuff they put together.
Sure. Yeah, I can see maybe the sizzle reel's not done. Maybe they haven't locked in every dev that's going to be part of that. But like, I think the brux of the show and what they're going to have demos for media. Which, by the way, there will be demos, guys. Just this year, it's literally only media during Media Week behind closed doors. Unless, who knows? Maybe we do get some public demos during E3. Some companies probably will. Quick stop here to shout out some new super chats we had come in over the course of the show. Here we had a $1.99 one come in from JC Carla Moreau, who said they're going to show Game Pass on Switch. LOL JK. So we're not talking about that on this podcast, but today I dropped a news story that people are focusing on the Skyward Sword part. It was a 2-part story, guys. Nintendo redacted information in the lawsuit between Epic and Apple when Microsoft got on the stand and talked specifically about xCloud. And the parts that were redacted were the parts that mentioned xCloud and Nintendo Switch. And the reasoning for the redaction, because there has to be a listed reason for it, is Nintendo said that this reveals ongoing discussions between Microsoft and Nintendo. Now, it could be relevant to the case, but they have to redact it for the public. Because it's like an insider trade secret. Microsoft kind of went too far bringing it up, is what Nintendo is saying. So, in bringing that up, you joke, Game Pass on Switch, LOL. If we're getting xCloud, who the hell's to say we're not getting Game Pass? I'm just throwing that out there. People have been doubting it. We've seen the switches in the background of Microsoft's videos, and now we see a legal document that Nintendo, who's not even participating in this lawsuit, had their lawyers go in and get redacted before the document was released to the public. So we don't know what Microsoft and Nintendo are talking about when all the conversations around it are about Game Pass and xCloud. So it might sound like a joke. I don't think it's such a joke anymore. Nintendo's legal doesn't get involved if it's a joke. I'm guessing that this might have been a big announcement at E3, by the way. I don't know who's announcing it. I'm sure Microsoft wants to announce it. But maybe, whatever. I don't know. But
they bring Reggie back out in Microsoft's conference.
I love the Reginator. But I'm just throwing that out there. It's actually not as joking as you might think. There's some legit stuff behind it now. That's not a rumor. It's not speculation.
Do they bring Doug Bowser dressed up as Bowser with the Switch out on the stage for the Microsoft conference to announce it?
Right.
There you go.
Right. Kind of like when Miyamoto came on stage with Ys Guillemot to announce Mario plus Rabbids 2 or Mario plus Rabbids, the first one. Again, I think there's a second one coming. There's some rumors behind that too. Taker610 had a $5 super chat coming in, and he says, "I thought the upcoming hardware is more PlayStation 4 Pro than PlayStation 5. I wish it was a next gen because take my money. I want Breath of the Wild 2 as good as it can be." It's not going to be obviously PlayStation 5. We're talking about the Switch Pro level. Don't want to touch about this too much. Not really a topic for today. Because one, I don't think Switch Pro is being talked about at E3. Two, there's not really any new leaks and information out there about Switch Pro right now. It's kind of died out. Now that could be the calm before the big announcement,
before the drop,
or it could just be, hey, everything's all focused on what's happening at E3 right now, so nobody's talking about it. So, in terms of how powerful it's going to be, again, we can speculate on that all day. That's a topic for a future episode. But I do appreciate you, Taker610. What sucks is the original podcast I had planned tonight actually was going to have a conversation about that. I'll talk about that towards the end, though, why we had to swap out guests and change gears here. I don't think anyone's complaining, right? We're talking about Zelda. Who complains about Zelda? On my channel, anyways. That's it.
and a mind of its own.
You punk. And then we had a $10 super chat come in from Midnight Naomi who said, just stopping by to show some support. Love the set, dude. Also, look at the fancy moving words on the bottom of the screen. Is this the news? So for those listening to the audio version, we do have like a ticker on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
There is a high possibility that we are going to have headlines coming in there from E3 hot, even before we possibly talk about them. Let's just say you might want to turn in to NintendoPrime.net as well during our coverage to potentially get news before we talk about it.
So what you're saying is,
talk about it.
So what you're saying is we might read news on our own ticker, get excited off our own ticker.
I mean, maybe. I'm going to be involved in. It's going to be kind of weird because I'm going to be here, but I'm going to be involved in that. But also talk. Like, it's going to be kind of crazy. But also, watch at NintendoPrime.net. Let's just say we're going to have some of the headlines coming up. So you don't miss anything. We don't want me to miss anything because there's going to be what's happening in the live show, and there's always additional things happening, and we got to make sure you guys get it all of it in one place. That's our goal. So I'm already sweating just thinking how the hell I'm going to manage it all. But you know what? This is what I do, everyone. I mean, everyone thought, oh, the podcast set is nice. How much nicer can a set really look?
Ta-da!
And this isn't even its final form.
Right.
We're not even next level yet. Just wait. All right. So, I again, Blowout, all that stuff I talked about, the virtual console stuff, I think that's pretty much going to be the brux of it. I don't think there's going to be too much else talked about. That's already a ton of stuff. They'll probably briefly mention merch. I think there'll be a Zelda Lego set, probably. We have a Luigi one coming out. I feel like they'll have a Zelda one. Say it's coming out in January or February. Kind of space it out from the Luigi one. I don't know what it's going to be like because they like to do this unique stuff with Lego, which I kind of wish they would just do standard Lego and the unique stuff. But they're just doing the unique stuff. So I think there'll be something unique, some sort of Zelda adventure, some sort of, I don't know, because like you don't really jump on things. Maybe it'll be like a sensor in the sword and you have to like go like this and whack the enemy, and that's how it registers a hit. I have no idea. They'll figure it out.
It's a top that you spin,
and there'll be lots of merchandise. There'll be probably collector's pins as well, and all that stuff. There'll be, and by the way, we're not gonna get all the merch announced here. There's already actually some new merch that just got announced in Japan. There's some merch in Japan coming officially from Nintendo based on the Kokiri. So that is something that's already happening. So Zelda merch, maybe it's already starting to ramp up before they even announce it. So, and who knows, like Kokiri stuff might be being announced in this direct for the rest of the world too. So who knows? I love the Kokiri, by the way. Oh, that reminds me. It's for E3 2021. We can't talk about it. You guys can't know everything going on. I got to keep some surprises in the barrel, in the pipes. Maybe some surprises for Eric's here. We'll see. Like Eric, surprise! Princess Zelda is now your new girlfriend. Here she is, da 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 da. And then it's just my dog coming out from under the table with a wig on.
Right. Oh Lord, that'd be great.
All right. Is there anything else about the Zelda anniversary or Zelda stuff in general you guys would like to talk about?
Man,
Eric, can you think of anything?
No, I got nothing.
All right.
Are you playing Master Mode in Breath of the Wild? You just beat the game, so are you doing Master?
Not.
Oh, you're not.
I've started a game, but I beat the game at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So I was like, I don't really want to start it. I may dabble in it. I don't think I'm going to actually go through the full thing. But
have fun with the Lionel in the starting area.
Yeah.
Have fun with that one.
Hooray.
Hooray! Korok stuff. Yeah, Kokiri. Did I say Kokiri? I meant Korok stuff.
Korok.
Sorry.
Dude,
Thanks for the correction in the chat. It's Korok
Yeah.
merchandise, not Kokiri. God.
did
why was-
they make an actual live golden
to
poo?
be fair, aren't the Korok actually the Kokiri anyways? Like, factually? Pretty sure they are. If I remember my Wind Waker lore correctly. Anyways. So, was I really wrong?
Did they make it a golden poo amiibo?
Oh my god. They just sell Breath of the Wild golden poo.
Yeah.
just a box of poo.
Yeah, no, it's gold covered chocolate.
Oh,
Little
baby
candies.
poos.
little candies.
Like Hershey's Kisses.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The things you come up with.
Why not?
The things you come up with. You know what's gonna be sad?
Hmm.
Because
Becomes
E3 is
true.
not in person and they might have Breath of the Wild 2 there. We don't get any fly merch. Like any
I know,
exclusive
right?
E3
I know.
swag. Here's the
That's-
thing. I don't really care that much about E3 swag. I collect it if it's there, but I don't really like, oh my god, I gotta go here to get this guy. But like if it's Zelda, yeah. I'll do what's required to get it. But it's like we could have a Breath of the, like a major new Zelda game showed, and like I won't be there to get swag because there's nothing to get. It's possible that they come up with some sort of stuff you can buy online during E3, but still, it's not the same.
Mhm.
I think either that or ideas for swag might be mixed in with various pre-order bonuses for Breath of the Wild 2.
Now that would be interesting
Mhm.
because usually pre-order bonuses are limited. To however many units the store has or how many units they have available for pre-orders, because they'll take more pre-orders usually than they have that stuff available. Interesting. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Anything else Zelda related you could think of, GameOverJesse? I mean, as if you can't talk Zelda all night.
The one question I had was, so I think starting with Ocarina of Time 3D, it had pictures in it, like posters in random places for Skyward Sword. Twilight Princess had random posters and pictures for Breath of the Wild. Do you think Skyward Sword HD will have any references or pictures towards Breath of the Wild 2? Oh, also Link's Awakening, they put the what was it? The Loftwing statue inside the Crane game.
It's
So
almost
like
as
there's
if they.
like little hints and nods to
It's almost as
whatever
if
the
they
next
always
Zelda game
tease what's
coming out
next or
was.
something, right? Like they
Yeah.
always do it. They always do it.
So do you
yeah,
think something like that, like a
They'll-
picture
they'll-
of
yeah, there'll be something. It might be in Link's bedroom or something. They'll have some sort of tease.
cool.
It's
They'll
The question
change,
is, will it
what's
be
his name?
new? Will the tease be new art that we haven't seen
Oh,
before, or a new statue?
The Twilight
or
Princess stuff wasn't. It was the stuff from the first trailer where they
something? Yeah.
showed Link running on the horse and stuff. I don't know. One thing I would like to see is if they changed the beast guy that you have to get the what are they called? The star bits.
I don't think it's Star
The
Bits.
joy
What is it?
Chris.
What are
No,
those things?
it's the star bits from Galaxy, but there's something different. The gratitude crystals.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So the guy that you have to get the gratitude crystals for, instead of him being like the big bat wing demon, if they made him look more like zombie Ganondorf from the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't think they will, but I just think it would be cool. Make him look grotesque and stuff.
Oh,
Scarier.
that's true. That's true. All right. So, I guess we could swing gears a little bit, since someone did bring up the Switch Pro, and that was the original conversation I was going to have tonight. Let's start with the first one that is Zelda related. Breath of the Wild 2. Does Switch Pro launch alongside it?
I hope so. That's really.
Do
all
we
I
end
got.
every statement with a question?
Yes.
Okay. What if I say Breath of the Wild 2 may launch alongside or no, the Switch Pro may launch with alongside the release of Breath of the Wild 2, but Breath of the Wild 2 will definitely release during the launch of Switch Pro. If that makes sense.
Isn't that like two ways to say the same thing?
No. Like if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out for Switch, and then
you're saying if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, Switch Pro might come out alongside it. But if Switch Pro is coming out for sure this year, then Breath of the Wild 2 will hit with it. Right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
but that only really works if the Switch Pro has like is more than just like a game that just upscales or whatever games. If it has its own games
Sure.
exclusively for it.
Now, a question, and this could be beyond Switch Pro. What about the idea of a special edition Zelda Switch or Switch Pro? Switch Lite, whatever.
That'd be nice.
Are we going to get one?
Yes.
We got one for Mario. We got one sort of for Miitopia, at least a new color.
I
So you-
100% think so.
Now, will it be a Pro, a Lite, or a base Switch?
I think it would be the base Switch. If it launches with Switch Pro, then I think we would get a Switch Pro Switch model as well, or a Zelda model.
See,
Because
okay, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if Twilight Princess HD received the only custom Wii U, even though it was just like the gamepad with like sticker
I think it was the Wind
designs on it.
Waker. It was the
Was it Wind Waker?
Yeah, pretty sure it was Wind Waker.
Yeah, it was Wind Waker. 'cause
And it came with
also
Hyrule
came with
Historia,
Hyrule
digital
Historia.
copy.
Yeah. Now I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if that was good enough to receive the only Wii U custom console, then I think with all the stuff they've had, especially even with Skyward Sword getting Joy-Cons, then I think definitely Breath of the Wild 2 will get its own Switch.
So
I think it would be the normal Switch rather than the Switch Lite as well.
So my thought process is, yes, it's going to be the base Switch, but they're going to really confuse consumers because the Switch Pro is still going to come out when Breath of the Wild 2 does, but they're not. But they're going to have a custom base model, but not a custom Switch Pro model, making consumers of Zelda get really confused that want Pro, but then also want the custom model, and they end up spending like $1,000 this holiday to get Breath of the Wild plus the Pro plus another base Switch. Because my thought process is, you can't have a custom Switch Pro at launch of Switch Pro because that would affect manufacturing. I feel like, even though they might guarantee if we make 2 million of these things for launch, they're going to all sell, it's still one of those. I think just locking down the manufacturing into a consistent model for Switch Pro is more important than custom. Just like at launch, we only got the neon color Joy-Cons and the gray ones, and that was it. That's what they locked down for manufacturing. They gave us custom Switches and custom colors and stuff later. I feel like the same thing here. They're gonna, special edition regular Switch, but then Switch Pro is just gonna be, I don't even know. I mean, it might just be, it's because the rumors out there are the second half of the year are for enthusiast gamers.
Mm-hmm.
First half was to capture the more casual crowd, which if you look at the releases, all of that lines up except for Monster Hunter Rise. I wouldn't call that a casual crowd game. But I guess if you have like Mario Party in the second half, that would be a casual crowd game versus the other. So whatever, I guess some balance.
The majority was.
Yeah. So like, obviously a Switch Pro release would be for enthusiasts. I just think it's just going to be like a basic gray Joy-Cons or something like that. And they're not going to worry about multiple colors. Especially now during the pandemic. I feel like they're just going to simplify it as much as they can. Unless this is the big unless. I mean, if it has detachable Joy-Cons and they're just the same Joy-Cons, only the tablet's different.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, well, toss on a special edition Switch Pro that has Zelda Joy-Cons or something, right? Even though we just
or even if
Joy-Cons.
the dock looks similar as well, that could be another thing.
Well, the big thing is that they have to have a new dock, but it could be the same shell, right? And then just new internals. And if it's the same shell, then you could argue. So I get, the more you get into it, the more I guess it's like they could literally have the same back plate on the Switch Pro, and then just with Pro on it instead of Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch Pro. And I guess in theory you could then argue they could cut. So I get the more Jesse, you're talking me into it.
Yeah.
I didn't say a thing.
You leaded me. It's one of those. I say one thing and it just
You led the horse to
You
water
led the horse.
and actually made him drink.
You led the horse. God. Okay, Eric, thoughts? Custom Zelda system?
All 3.
Oh, snap.
All freaking 3.
Oh,
They're
my
gonna
God.
go
You're going to make
all
me go
out.
broke.
They're going to go all
Because
out.
here's the thing. You know, guys, if a Switch Pro's coming, I'm going to give one of those away. I'm going to give all the customs. So, like, now you're going to tell me, oh, there's all 3. So then I'm going to have to buy a base Switch Pro to give away, plus a base Switch Pro for myself. Then I got to buy a Zelda edition of all of them for myself. And then I'm going to spend like $4,000 on giveaways and then just having them for myself. I don't...
Hey,
guys,
take 2 seconds and think about all the different 3DS Zelda themed models there were.
let's not go there. They all were all released at the same time, though. They gave me time.
Yeah.
Usually
But
a few months to save up.
I have a feeling that they're going to feel that Breath of the Wild 2 is a big enough game that they can justify
I'm going to need a big holiday
all
bonus.
3. And here is even my thought process too on this, is that there may not be another option of Switch Pro. It might be the only option coming out to begin with. Is
Only
Zelda
a
Switch Pro.
Zelda? Ooh. They'd get away with it,
Okay.
though. They totally would get away with it.
Here's the evil thing. So, Switch Pro, if it released in, say, September, and then the Zelda themed version released in November, just in time for Black Friday sales.
Oh boy.
Oh, no.
Oh boy. Oh, that
Almost, there was more time between the two, but almost
yeah.
like what they did with
What-
Breath of the
and-
Wild
and
and
what if
Breath of the
before-
Wild.
In this scenario, right? Like, I'm thinking in this scenario, the Zelda one's not even announced before
Oh,
the
no.
before the
Oh,
Switch
God,
Pro
no.
comes out. It gets announced
Oh.
after.
Wow.
Because that would be totally Nintendo. Because they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to want to
Yeah.
ruin sale. They're not going to want to ruin sales of Switch Pro right away. They're not going to tell you about it. Then they're going to be like, oh, by the way, we have the special edition one like a month after the Pro comes out. And everyone's going to be like, are you-
Really? I mean,
I
alright.
already can't get Pro. It's already
Yeah.
sold out. So what's it matter?
Yeah.
That's what people are going to say.
Yeah.
But. Oh my gosh.
I could see him doing all 3 just because.
So what's the number one? Okay. We all own Switches.
Mhm.
What's the number one thing that each of us want to see improved on Switch Pro? That, whatever it is. Maybe you just want more power. What's one thing you want to see improved over the current Switch?
Controller with the headset jack.
Oh, you mean like the Fusion Pro Power 8 controller? We're giving away during E3. $100 controller in the back. Why don't you grab that, Eric? Show it off to the people. Give it away. It does have a headphone jack. Does work wired. It doesn't work wirelessly. However, people have gotten Bluetooth to work with wireless audio on the Switch ever since they did that update on hacked Switches, which does enable this one to use it wirelessly. So the ability is there. And if Nintendo supports it, headphone jack on the Joy-Con or a controller could lead to Bluetooth support like that. This controller is already ahead of the game if that's the case. Giving this bad boy away during E3, $100 maybe. $100 for this bad boy, and it could be yours for free. The things I do for you guys. For free? Okay, so we got headphone jack from him. What's one thing you want to see fixed or changed?
I hate to say it, but you got to replace some sort of or upgrade the Joy-Cons. I mean, I think we can all agree.
What
with
kind
that.
of upgrades?
Like fixing Joy-Con drift, for sure. I mean, that's obviously whether you can keep the same footprint, so you can make them interchangeable back to the base model Switch would be nice, but you got if they are detachable Joy-Cons in any sort of capability, you gotta fix that.
My only fear is that Nintendo won't fix it, specifically because there's so many lawsuits over drift where Nintendo is legally claiming it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So if they fix it, even though it's a whole new model,
Right,
it's
they're
that
gonna lose
it's that
those.
pseudo for the lawsuits, Nintendo admitting there was a problem in the first place. Because these lawsuits are going to take years, by the way.
Not
There's actual
necessarily.
governments suing Nintendo out in Europe.
You could argue that they could just stumbled upon a better way to do it. I mean,
it's
just
possible.
because they fixed it doesn't mean that there was
doesn't mean they
anything-
fixed it.
right. They just improved it. Because
Sure.
because if it's not the only improvement to the Joy-Con, I don't know what else you can improve.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not the only improvement, they can argue that it's not specifically just that, so it's not, fixed.
Sure. Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's I think that's the number one thing everyone wants fixed. Now I could talk about more power. I think it's an obvious
Screen size.
I'm gonna go with another issue on Switch. It's one that maybe a lot of people might not care about, but I'm gonna say kickstand.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not a big tabletop user, anyways. Most times, if I use the kickstand, it's to prop it up on videos. So not really that huge of a deal to me. I'm almost always playing either handheld or docked. Even when we went on planes before, I held it. I didn't do the whole remove the Joy-Cons and set it on the tray. Plane ride's just too bumpy in general, even if it had a good kickstand for me to really rely on that. Plus, you're on a plane. Who knows if the guy in front of you is doing something with the seat and your tray is going to hit you. It's just, I'd rather hold it. I feel safer that way. I understand some people have like tablets they watch movies on and they prop those up. Okay, fair. I guess if the kickstand was that good. But I do want to see it just improved in general because I know my kids have used it in that way. And it would be nice if it stopped falling over.
Mhm.
And it's such a minor thing. Compared to Joy-Con drift, compared to a headphone jack, I think those are way bigger deals.
No,
But-
no.
And you could say Bluetooth audio in general. But I almost feel like Bluetooth audio after that last update is a given. Whatever
Yeah.
the next Switch is just going to have it. So I don't even think that's something I need to say because I feel like it's obvious already happening.
I wouldn't necessarily say that ours are a bigger issue. That is, I think, just a very underappreciated or under talked about issue. I still think that there are plenty of people out there that would like to see the kickstand improved. It's just not as publicized as everything else because there's no lawsuits to say make the kickstand better where with Joy-Con drift there is. Or in the past, your controllers had headphone support, or these controllers have headphone support. It's something that's been done before. Why isn't it done now? This kickstand thing is relatively kind of new in this kind of sphere. So, I think it's under talked about, not necessarily that it's not a big issue.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's other things we could talk about as well, of course. Getting under the bezel, all that jazz. But all right. So we got that on lockdown. Now, what's the one thing you hope they don't change about Switch heading into the Switch Pro? Hit you guys with that one. I could start if you guys don't have an idea.
Jeez.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I hope, and I guess it's more like it's kind of a feature, but I hope they don't change the compatibility of the Switch Pro with current Switch accessories and docks. All Switch accessories, all Switch docks work with it. Now, maybe you don't get the 4K, and that's fine. Maybe you only get that with the new dock. But if you're someone who, like me, who has multiple docks, it would be nice if you could still drop the Switch Pro into all of them. It'd be nice if all current Switch accessories, be it third-party, Joy-Con controllers or really anything. The Power A controller, I assume would work because it runs over Bluetooth. But I'm just saying, like, all that stuff still compatible with it, even if it has stuff that's better that you would normally use. Maybe that's a get. I don't know that it being compatible with the current dock is a given, but it would be nice if it was. That's my thing. You guys got any ideas?
I hope they don't go with the get rid of the detachable Joy-Cons. To be completely honest, I know they did it with the Lite, but it is nice to just be able to pop. I mean, I don't play it often.
What if they gave you a Pro controller in the box? Would that change your mind?
Maybe.
Because for enthusiasts, okay,
Maybe.
cool. So then, what's the best way to what's the number one issue with the Switch, normal Switch in portable mode besides Joy-Con drift? People have wobbly Joy-Cons. Okay, that's where the Lite kind of feels a bit better in the hand sometimes because it's not wobbly. So it doesn't feel like the Joy-Cons are going to fall off. So it's better in handheld as a Lite, but then you lose some functionality. Obviously, the tabletop mode, the motion controls being able to detach, but you also lose, the ability to take them off while docked, which Switch Lite can't dock. But let's assume this one does. But if they give you the Pro controller, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
By the way,
No,
there are games that require Joy-Con. By the way, not very many, but there are.
I mean that's a fair argument, and that would kind of lead me to as long as they gave you something quote unquote better option, yeah, then I guess I could see that. But
Okay.
to a certain extent, you buy Joy-Cons, I want to use them on my Pro.
No.
So yeah, like you said. So yeah, it's kind of one of those
Sure.
things that, yeah, I don't know.
Jesse, you got one?
Yeah, at first I couldn't think of anything, so I was just gonna joke and say the dark mode on the home screen. But after thinking about it, the width of the thickness of the Switch, because I think it's a good, comfortable fit, and although you probably wouldn't want to put it in your pocket,
You can.
you still can. Yeah, like if it's
Especially if you take the
absolutely
Joy-Con
necessary.
off.
Yeah, like if you're carrying things out to the car or something, or just whatever situation, like just being able to put it in your pocket to have your hands free without having to set it down somewhere or take the time to put it back in the case and zip it back up, and then you're still carrying the case. You can't put it anywhere, so it's the same situation. So yeah, the width of it.
The width
Okay,
of it.
the thickness. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing though that I will kind of say with that though is, to me, when I'm playing my Switch, it, to a certain extent, I almost feel like I could just snap that thing in half. There are times where it almost feels like it's bending in my hands. So it would be nice to, going back to kind of what I would like to see improved, is that feeling that, this thing is a little bit more sturdy. Because I feel like I could just snap it right in half if I really tried and wanted to.
And that's because of the Joy-Con being wobbly. That's why
Okay.
it feels that way.
So then an upgraded Joy-Con rail or attachment type of functionality would then be nice too.
Yeah. We had a $5 super chat come in a little bit earlier. Thank you so much. The 8th Thark, one of our regulars here, did a $5 Australian super chat, and he says, would the Breath of the Wild 2 Collector's Edition, bringing this back to full circle to the Zelda we've been talking about, be just as much of a mess as the Breath of the Wild Collector's Edition, where different regions paid more but have less content? Thoughts? We'll get a little background on this. I guess, because I don't know if Eric knows the full background on this. So in the United States, we had like 2 different collector's editions, right? We had the Master Edition, and then the what was the big one with the statue called? Master Edition? God, what was it called?
Yeah.
Do you remember GameOverJesse?
I think was it the one was just a collector's edition, one was master's edition, or something like that.
Yeah, let me look up. I'll look it up quick. So we had 2
I
different
know,
versions here, and both of them had the same things, except the big box one had the Master Sword statue thing, which I still don't have. Sucks. I don't have it. They were sold out. I did get the other one, so I got the coin and the map and all. Yeah, you got
it
the
was
same one.
Collector's edition and master's edition.
Okay.
I just looked it up.
Okay, and was Collector's Edition the big one? Am I remembering that correctly? Or is
It had the sword, the Switch
okay.
case, a CD, a map, and it came in the big black box.
Yep. And in other territories, some of them only had 1 edition and were missing some of the items. Some of the ones that had the same items cost significantly more than it did in the United States. And I don't remember the exact details of, because I barely remember the exact details of the North American one. So, remembering worldwide. But this has been an issue with collector's editions from Nintendo for a while. And really, a lot of companies is variance in what's in them region to region. So I'll throw this one to, how about Eric? Do you think they're gonna keep this variance going? And do you think there's gonna be different money amounts in different regions combined with literally just different collector's editions, where if you actually want everything, you're starting to import from everywhere?
Yeah. No, I think part of the money thing though too is because of different governments and how they view video games. So Nintendo may not have some of that issues with the pricing point of it, but I just don't see them. Again, it's one of those things that Nintendo sometimes sticks to Nintendo, and so I'm gonna say there probably is gonna be region. What am I looking for? The region oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? Collector's editions.
There
Thank
you go. I was like, I don't know what
God.
you're looking for.
Yeah, I believe there's going to be the regional collector's editions, just because I think Nintendo's going to Nintendo and just keep doing what they're doing. I don't know if they've heard enough, quote unquote backlash. Plus, you can, because the Switch is region free, you can theoretically order something from a different region.
I think the worst example of this was the Breath of the Wild. I swore, wasn't it Hyrule Warriors that had like an exclusive item in Japan with their collector's edition? That like, I
I
can't
don't
remember.
remember.
I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was the watch, maybe.
Oh
can't-
yeah.
It was some sort of really big item that just didn't release anywhere else, and that really like this just happens, right? Because what I've been told behind the scenes is that how these collector's editions come together in different regions is the regions put them together, and they don't necessarily cross communicate that what they're doing. So then you end up with different items and different things. In fact, well, did we get this? We got the scarf right in the United States. I'm pretty sure we got the scarf in ours. But yeah, it was just a big because I have the scarf, but someone might have sent it to me, so maybe I didn't buy it. But yeah, I honestly think that there's going to be different collector's editions because there always is, and they're going to be differently priced, and there's going to be different values on different things because that's just the way it is. It sucks. I wish this isn't what it was. I wish it'd just be a universal, worldwide versions. One, because it creates more of the same version, which means more people have a chance to get all that stuff. And then two, it also just adds to the overall bin that is this entire Zelda Collector's Edition, same price everywhere kind of thing. And the funny thing is, the game is already priced differently in different regions. So, and not just because of inflation reasons, some legitimately just pay more. Canadians know the plight there.
Australia as well.
I was gonna say
Australia does know.
Brazil.
Yeah, Australia. A lot of Brazil. Oh, Brazil's the worst.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how bad it was in Brazil until someone who lived there started talking to me about it, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" So basically, you can't be a gamer in Brazil. Moving on. Now I understand why all those Sega, made by that really crappy company systems exist. The Sega Genesis collection systems that have all been really horrible keep coming out because they're popular in Brazil because they're like the only thing they can afford there. So, yeah, they suck, but like they can't afford to actually like you get bad with Switch. Try to get a PlayStation 5 in Brazil. I don't even want to go there. $70 game. Yeah, try 200 in Brazil. I don't even want to touch. Brazil's government hates games. They'll still let you sell them at a very expensive price. Australian government's not too fond of video games either.
Yeah,
if I remember right.
Yeah,
we have some Aussie fans. The 8th Arc is an example. I know he's from Australia, so he's probably way more well versed than I am for someone that doesn't live in the Down Under. What are your thoughts on this, Jesse?
I think it all just comes down to, like you said, different regions putting together different stuff. But then, like, even if different regions had the same items in their collector's editions, then the cost to manufacture those different items from that country may be different than another country, or maybe some are counting in like for the size of America, having to ship it to all the different stores would add a little bit more than just going to a smaller country like Germany or something and then shipping to all the different areas in that. So that's what I'm thinking. Just
that would be
total
nice.
cost of shipping covering everything, and then the actual
Bulk price
manufacturing
versus-
coming down to the countries.
All right, so we had a couple more super chats coming in, asking some questions. One of them asked a question about Breath of the Wild 2. I'll get to that one in a moment because I want to give Andrew Brightwell a shout out quick because he had a $4.99 super chat. Didn't attach any messages or questions for us. So, hey, if you have something, I'll try to pay attention in the chat and you can say it. Otherwise, thank you so much for supporting the channel and supporting the podcast. By the way, you can also support. I don't talk about it enough. We do have a Patreon at patreon.com/NintendoPrime. That literally, like everything on it's about supporting the podcast. So that's another way to support the podcast itself. Especially you like this set. I'd like to keep expanding. I'd like to keep trying new things. I have ideas for interswappable parts. I have ideas for maybe even a second screen that I can swing in for some casts, swing out for others. That's right. Use one of those swing arms.
Whoa.
I got lots of ideas, but there's also one of my fundamental ideas, by the way. Before I get to lore and web to bone, thank you so much for your 5. We'll get to your question because it's about Breath of the Wild 2. So you know how we have the mics right here?
Mhm.
I kind of want to change the fundamental setup of how we do this. 'Cause sometimes our voices go in and out. My head bombing. I try to keep, and the boom arms really help with that in our other in the old podcast setup. But what I think is the old podcast is so old, 8 episodes old, and it's really you guys saw that podcast setup. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I think this one's a little better though, guys. Right? Can you guys agree in the chat? Who's here watching live? Do you like this setup better, or do you like the old podcast setup better? You guys let me know. And this one, there's no TV glare.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
I actually kind of want to get some of those like kind of boom arm mics, and put like a set of like 1, 2, and then one off the ceiling.
Okay. Interesting.
So then we have no mics in front of us, and no matter where we turn, we get nice crisp audio pickup. Now I might have to adjust some of this room to make that work, so there's no echo. But I've seen other like big time YouTubers are starting to use that instead of these, so then they can have the mic off camera.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might suck for audio. I mean, the best thing to switch to would be lavalier mics for sure, but we can't. People wonder why we don't use lav mics, which I thought about using for E3. Is because at least right now, maybe I should test again. But right now, lavalier mics have been picking up the power lines outside my house. We have some really massive ones and picking up buzzing. But I should look it up if there is lavalier mics that
are shielded.
Well, not just shielded, but if they have ones that run through or convert like lavalier into XLR. And then I can run it through that, which is what these run through, which shield and get rid of the buzz.
Mhm.
I don't know if those exist. I'm sure they're really expensive if they do. But that would be interesting. I should look into that. It's a good idea. Because one thing I am when I'm looking at this setup here is I'm like, I do kind of hate that we're kind of covered up. There are also headset versions that are, like the guys you guys see Nintendo Treehouse use, right? They use headsets. I looked up. Those headsets cost $2,800 each. So you wonder why we're not using those. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
But anyways, get to Laura Webb to Bone here said, I like spitballing sometimes. I listen back through my podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. Oh, that because I always watch to find improvements. I'm a perfectionist with my sets. If you can't tell, I'm done with the lazy days of, okay, like look at me, look how good I look. I look pretty fly, right? Right. I know you audio guys can't see it, but I'm looking pretty good. Eric, you look like Eric. Although, I don't want to tell people what I'm wearing for E3. Are you going to join me?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes! Finally, we're going to have... Oh, dude, this is going to be super professional. You don't
no
even
pants. Know. Sorry.
No pants.
Sorry, I let that leak. My bad.
No pants.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no pants.
I'm sorry.
It's all off camera anyways, right?
Yeah,
Covered up by the ticker.
Right.
Covered up. All right, so we had Laura went to Bo with the Breath of the Wild thing. It says, just for fun, what would you like Breath of the Wild 2 to be called? Well now.
Ooh.
That's tough.
Ooh.
I'm just gonna go with Breath of the Wild 2.
No, there you go. I mean,
it doesn't get more obvious than that. And look at Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
A lot of 2 games end up selling really, really well when you put 2 in the title. What? Eric's just giving me this look like I got so like, but he's just not saying it. What is it? Stop smirking at me. You're making me want to put my pants back on. I thought we were just free balling over here, and now you're like, nope,
right.
Pull it back up.
Yeah. Fires of the Spirit.
Fire. Okay.
Fires of the
What's your reasoning for this?
I mean, we're talking spirits. How we've kind of gone back in the past with the heroes and things like that. And, kind of fires are associated generally with spirits and things like that. So that would be or flames of the spirits or something along the lines of that would be, I think, a really cool name.
I love how Frieza in the chat is like, I got a feeling GameOverJesse already knows the title. And that's why he's like, oh yeah, Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah. Breath of the Wild 2. I already know. No, I guarantee he doesn't know. At all. Wait, I gotta check his smirk. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me see. Does it? Oh, the smirk is
Deadpan.
coming. I saw the smirk. I saw teeth.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, maybe he does know. I mean,
No.
he apparently knew about the amiibo, so I mean, who knows who
I
he's
didn't
talking
know about the amiibo. I just knew Monday, and it wasn't
Uh-huh.
even Monday. So
So you're saying you're fake news?
pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. Unsubscribe from the channel. Never watch GameOverJesse again.
Oh Lord.
We will no
Yeah.
longer be reporting on anything that Jesse has
Yeah.
originating
Good luck with that,
reporter
yeah.
on. Obviously, he's not the source. He doesn't work at Nintendo.
Yeah.
All right. So, in terms of the title, I mean, we only have the initial trailer to work on, right? That's why like Breath of the Darkness sounds stupid when that was like one of the rumors out there, but it also is like I get it because it was really dark. And anyone said it's going to be really dark. Darkness. Okay, got it. Dark, right? It's going to be the darkest Zelda ever. You know, it's going to be the darkest Zelda ever. So, like, it's such limited information. Like, Breath of the Wild 2 would be very unlike Nintendo. They haven't numbered once in Zelda 2. And even then, they gave it a subtitle with The Adventure of Link. So, you know, even Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, right? Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Like, all the sequels have their own name. So, and I feel like this is particularly because Nintendo thinks each game can stand on its own. You don't need to play the prior, which is basically true. You can play Majora's Mask, have no idea what's going on with Ocarina of Time, and be perfectly fine. You might not understand the intro and why Link is looking for a fairy, but I mean, hey, that's like a very small part of the actual game. So
Even Phantom Hourglass to Spirit Tracks, or Wind Waker to Phantom Hourglass.
yeah, yeah, and like if you played Wind Waker, you understand what's happening in Phantom Hourglass, but like at the same point, also like Phantom Hourglass completely stands on its own. So like this is the tough part. This is the tough part. Is trying to come up with a name based on a very small trailer we saw 2 years ago. You know, it what if it's like literally oh man. See, I have some good ideas. So I was like, what about, you know, The Legend of Zelda? Like, I don't think they're using Breath of the Wild. I don't think Breath of the Wild is going to be in the name at all.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it would be nice if it was because sales, but I think it's going to sell regardless. So I think it's going to be like The Legend of Zelda. Return to the Sky or something, or The Legend of Zelda. You know, the old joke, the old game over screen, like Return of Ganon, or like something like Return of something, or like some major reference. Because if you think about it, like,
But
Zelda games have names that either reference an item directly, like Ocarina of Time. That's an item in the game.
Return to the Sky would also kind of tie it back in with Skyward Sword, though, too.
There's that too. And then you have, and I get it. Return to the Sky sounds like a stupid name. I understand it sounds stupid. No matter what name I throw out there, it's going to sound stupid compared to what the actual
A
name
lot of
is.
people thought Breath of the Wild was a stupid name when it was first.
Yeah, like Breath of the Wild is a stupid name. You're not taking a breath. You're waking up, and what does Breath of the Wild have to do with the game? Someone tell me what the name Breath of the Wild actually has to do with the game.
They breathed wild into Zelda. Open world. Like,
see, and like that's probably what it is, but it's also like, I mean, come on. You could have called it anything else. So it could be a name that's just totally unrelated, but usually it's not. Like Twilight Princess. What did that have to do with? Come on now. You know? Spirit Tracks. Oh my gosh, what did that have to do with? Phantom Hourglass. What did that have to do with? You know, the only ones that's like, oh, The Legend of Zelda, and then like Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, it was kind of vague titles. Well, Link to the Past. Yeah, you could argue it didn't really have much to do with anything until you got to like the midway point of the game. And then you're like,
The Japanese name, Triforce of the Gods.
Triforce of the Gods was a way better name. I don't know why they changed it, but like, it's one of those things that the names seem to always, until Breath of the Wild anyway, seem to always be directly related to the game itself, and it's like a stupid, obvious thing.
The best name, Ancient Stone Tablets.
Oh, yes. Yes.
there you go. Yeah.
So, like, that's why I'm like, hey, literally, Return to the Sky. Or Going Skyward. No, it wouldn't be going. They wouldn't use the word going.
No. Return to the Sky.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to be something that's so dumb. And you're like, yeah, but that's what you do in this game. So, like, There you go.
Legend of Zelda Hellfire. We thought the castle was going up. It's actually going
What
down.
it should be is The Legend of Zelda Return to Gruseland.
Yes.
And you guys will understand that once you play Skyward Sword, why Gruseland is real, and I believe in the Pompadour.
I mean, strange twist of fate. Groose is actually the
Groose is on the loose, baby.
evil
Next
man
announcement
in
for
this-
Smash
in this
Bros.
one. Yes, Groose and Smash.
Do you think there's a chance at a new Zelda character in Smash, guys? We got 2 slots left.
Would not surprise me.
Yeah.
I think so
there's
too.
always
For
room
some reason, I'm
Zelda.
like, look, I think Crash is one of the slots, maybe. But I'm like, you know what? When's the last time we got like an actual new Zelda character? We've gotten skins.
I think so. If they went with the champion, everyone would kind of be ticked that their favorite
Their
champion
favorite
didn't
champion
get
wasn't
picked
chosen,
instead of the other champion. So
You know,
I
wonder
think if they went with like Sidon or someone who's
Yeah.
popular but isn't a champion,
yeah.
Or like a Loftwing. Dun,
Could they-
dun,
yeah,
dun.
yeah,
We have a
right,
piranha plant for crying out loud. I want to
Yeah.
hear it's not possible.
I mean,
guys.
could they skin the?
Well, the problem. Okay, so like with the champions, right? You're talking about like,
Champions,
let's have 4 swappable.
Yeah.
There's plays so like they're so fundamentally different in the game with their abilities and their attacks. I don't know how you. I mean, if anyone can make it work, it's Sakurai.
Mhm.
yeah, it would be
Well-
even more different than swapping between the different Pokemon with the Pokemon trainer.
Yeah, like it could be done. I just, I don't want to be in charge of balancing that. Let me tell you.
Oh, right.
Holy crap. That would be like the final character reveal because Sakurai would be like, I'm done after this. This is it. This is my ultimate character. I'm never doing it again.
What about
So-
the king?
Oh, the king? No?
Because he was pretty built in Breath of the Wild.
Like the king, well, he's huge. He's also in he plays a huge role in obviously the recent release of Age of Calamity. So I mean, I could see the king as being a possibility. See, and the thing about Sidon is like people like him, but
Mhm.
there's also that exact same type of character in every region, and that
Mhm.
again can make people get mad that they didn't get their favorite region characters in, right?
Old man.
Dude, I'd be all for old man. Dude, bring old man back.
He just throws swords at people. Here, take this. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this, and he just keeps throwing swords.
But like, I don't know. It feels like Breath of the Wild 2 on the horizon. There wasn't anything new for Breath of the Wild besides some costumes. Why not? Like, why not throw it out there and get a new Zelda character? Or like, I don't think people would complain about a new Zelda character, even though there's already quite a few.
Put in a
It's just
guardian.
not another version of Link. We have what, 3 versions of Link? I think we're
Yeah.
good there.
Put in a guardian.
Oh my! I mean, well, they did put in. It took forever, but they did put in Ridley. So I mean, if Ridley's in, anything's possible. Taker610 has his joking take. By the way, thank you so much for your $2 super chat that says, "Legend of Zelda: Cough of the Wild. Link gets COVID. Oh boy!
Oh,
As we get out of COVID,
yeah.
Hyrule is just beginning." Oh man, yeah, I know. We had another $5 super chat coming in from Frieza, who said, "Hey, do you think there's a chance Breath of the Wild 2 will be multiplayer?"
Mm.
Now that can mean many different things. It could be kind of like Mario Galaxy's kind of multiplayer, where like the sidekick moves around and collects some certain things. There's Triforce Heroes style multiplayer, Four Swords style. Phantom Hourglass had that additional mode that was multiplayer. You know, multiplayer would have made sense in a game like Spirit Tracks, where someone controls the Phantom and someone controls Link. That would have been a neat idea for multiplayer. Obviously, some people are hoping Zelda's playable for at least part of this game. Maybe they're both playable at the same time in multiplayer, co-op,
If they keep the champion
online
type
multiplayer. So, do you guys think there's even a chance, even a minute chance of multiplayer in this game in any form?
Thing.
I do.
I would say
I
small,
would say-
but yeah.
Yeah, why
I
do you
give
think
it
so?
an 80% chance.
And why? 80? That's really high.
Wow.
Why?
Well, Eric was talking first. Does he want to go?
No. Go ahead. No,
Okay.
I'm curious. This is.
I-
Yeah, when you
said-
said 80%, I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I say it because, as we touched on earlier, when Breath of the Wild was first released or first announced, like before anything, one of the first things that Aonuma said about it was that he wanted to change the traditional formula of Zelda, and then he wanted you, or he didn't want players to think of it as a single player experience. Breath of the Wild came out, and it was totally a single player experience, and I think that could have been because of Nintendo's not so great online infrastructure, which they just upgraded, which possibly allowed them to upgrade games as simple as Mario Party, and even games that are really simple like Pokemon Sword and Shield. When you're playing online in it, there's like that 2-second delay between your friend moving their character and then them moving on your screen. Even Smash Bros. Has certain hiccups. So I think with that upgrade, and then with Age of Calamity as well, we also have the interview after Breath of the Wild released where Aonuma said that he wanted to take the multiplayer of Triforce Heroes and apply it to the Breath of the Wild engine, which Age of Calamity sort of did, but that was just normal multiplayer. That wasn't the Triforce Heroes online style of multiplayer. And Aonuma seems to keep, for some reason, going back to doing some sort of online multiplayer Zelda game. I think even what was it? Triforce Heroes started out as like a Four Swords Adventures remake, and then they cut it down to 3 because they couldn't quite do whatever they was planning on doing. So I think Breath of the Wild 2 will just be the combination of all of that, but it'll still be optional. I always use the example of Wolf Link in Breath of the Wild, to where instead of the computer controlling Wolf Link, imagine your friend could just pick up their controller and drop in as Wolf Link and play alongside you. And something like it just being that simple. Or like in Wind Waker, when you have to play the song and now you can control the Korok. Instead of you having to play a song to go back and forth, maybe you can keep playing as Link while your friend controls the Korok. So stuff like that. Even Majora's Mask had this section where you're in the Thieves' Hideout and you have to switch between the 2 characters to figure out the puzzle. So stuff like that, to where it would just make it easier if 2 people could do it, since you already have to use 2 characters to do it anyways. Why not allow it to be multiplayer? And there's also the interview or the announcements from Nintendo's president, where they said they were going to be putting a big focus on their online. They're going to be pushing their online service, and they're going to put a big focus on DLC for big games. And I think Breath of the Wild 2, it's kind of obvious that it'll get DLC, but I also think that big focus on online, pushing their online service, I think that will also apply, and it'll just be the culmination of all this past stuff that they've done. And it'll end up being Breath of the Wild 2 being optional multiplayer.
You have anything to add to that, Eric?
Do we think it's Breath of the Wild 2, or are they working on a massive MMORPG or MMO Zelda game? That would be interesting as heck. So, using the Breath of the Wild engine. As Nate walks off set. Because that would be really crazy. Not necessarily worked into Breath of the Wild 2, but a completely different Zelda game that uses the Breath of the Wild engine, but is an MMO. Nate hates me.
I mean, I think Nintendo could eventually get to that, but I think the most likely thing would be they would want to make sure they're getting normal multiplayer right first before they take that leap into
Yeah,
an
you're probably not
MMO.
wrong.
You bastard!
Yeah. Would I take your idea?
No.
No.
I have been wanting a Zelda MMO since I started playing World of Warcraft in 2004.
Yeah.
I'm so like I was never gonna bring it up until I have like a separate conversation where maybe I do a video when I'm like, here's why I want a Zelda MMO, which there are going to be people who are against it, and that's fine. I get it. MMOs aren't for everyone, and they never end, and I get it. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. I love MMOs. Not that I have time to really invest in a new one at this point, but I mean, if it's Zelda, let's be honest.
You'll find time.
I
You won't sleep.
Why, Eric? That's why I walked off set. I'm like, what are you doing to me right now? I'm about to have a heart attack over this, and it's not even like real.
They could get the Fantasy Star Online team to do a basic MMO for Zelda.
See, now it's just starting to add up where stop giving me hope. It's not going to happen. Here's the thing.
No.
I'm going to go as far as to say not only are we not getting a Zelda MMO, which,
obviously.
I don't think we're getting multiplayer in the game either. I'm going to
Okay.
go on the opposite direction of GameOverJesse, which is why I'm really glad that he was like 80% sure, because this would have been a really boring conversation otherwise, unless Eric had some
agree with everybody.
Then again, Eric had MMO come up, so maybe it wouldn't have been so boring.
I have ideas every once in a while.
Every once in a while. Damn it. No, so like, I personally just don't see them doing it. I know the quotes you're talking about. I know the references. I know they've dabbled in multiplayer aspects in Zelda before. Onuma has openly said, he wants to do multiplayer. Okay. None of what you're saying is incorrect. I just feel like, especially when I hear things like focus on like the enthusiast gamers in the second half. To me, that screams either hardcore multiplayer games.
Or
I'd say like a
hardcore
Splatoon 3 would be like a hardcore multiplayer game, although that's next year. But I'm thinking like Breath of the Wild. I get optional multiplayer. I get it. No, I think it's going to be a solo game, just like the first one, and they're going to leave it at that because here's the thing. It's sold 20 plus. What is that? 22, 23 million right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that's what I think the risk for multiplayer, if they do it, will either be in a dedicated multiplayer game, which they've done in the past, Force Swords Adventures, which again you can play single player, but let's just be honest, you should play that multiplayer. It's if you can, it's way better multiplayer. Triforce Heroes can play single player, way better multiplayer. I feel like that is more the direction. If you're going to do multiplayer Zelda, go all out. Otherwise, don't bother. I don't need a little side dish. I don't need a little companion. I don't need a little Go all out. Like what they did with Galaxy as an example. That's like a little companion.
Mm-hmm.
No, go all out or don't bother, because you're just gimping player 2 and just wishing that they could be the big brother playing player 1. And no, if they can't get the same experience I get while playing, then don't do it. That's my opinion. That's been my opinion forever. And I know that kills a lot of really good games out there that have this sidekick idea. But no, I'm good. Single player focused, just like the original Breath of the Wild. I'm not gonna be upset if there's one. I'll put it. I enjoy multiplayer Zelda. I'm not gonna be upset. I just think I'd rather see them do it right, and I think right is a game built around it. But this is a personal opinion. Clearly, they could have multiplayer aspects in it. I don't have any evidence to suggest they won't, other than me just saying, look at Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Best-selling Zelda game ever. No multiplayer.
Yeah.
Why do it? Because they know it's going to sell well and it's a chance to try it. I get it. There's good reasons for it. I'm not dumb. I don't want it to happen because I'd rather they do it right and do something like an MMO. Do something big. And I think they're going to have something multiplayer for the Nintendo Switch Online, like a Zelda 35. That's going to be like the focus of their multiplayer.
That could be
that too. It's kind of like my legit reason why I think that's going to be what they focus for multiplayer right now.
The 2D.
But I don't know. We'll
Possibly.
see.
It'd be interesting to see if they tied in a certain kind of character that we hinted at with the sword or the everything that we were hinting at earlier in the podcast as a second player, where you kind of just travel through the game with the other player and you help with different puzzles, different things like that. You may actually be able to even go off and explore on your own, type of thing. But it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Sure. Not actually thinking about that because being tied with the sword. But to have that companion, and I realize you don't like companion part of it, but to have kind of that companion, but a little bit more a companion plus along with you with said character.
I still don't like it. It's fine. I get it. I still don't like it. Frieza followed up in the chat, by the way, and it said that some of these thoughts stemmed from Commonwealth Realm, who they want to have on my channel one day. I will say this about Commonwealth Realm. Decent guy from what I remember talking to him. Haven't talked to him in years. But he's in a different time zone than me, which makes a podcast thing hard to do. Doesn't mean we can't have a separate conversation video, but because of the time zone, it's really hard to line up when we are actually around at the same time. When you got like working kids and YouTube and like I'm already really busy. So then trying to be like, oh, let me come up with a special time.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to move the podcast to a different night, like I'm doing on June 8th from a Wednesday to a Tuesday. We're going to have a special guest on Camelot 331. Don't know if you guys know who he is. He's going to be coming on Tuesday, the week of E3, which is actually kind of good. And then I don't have to worry about the podcast the rest of the week. So I can focus on other things. Like on that Thursday, there's the Summer Games Fest. And then E3 starts on the weekend. So, and if I don't stream Friday night, then like don't be shocked. Because we're about to do 3 straight days of 12-hour stream. I might stream, though. We might do a little pre-discussion. But it won't be like my typical long streams. It'll be maybe an hour. Like if Eric's here spending the night, maybe we hop on and we have a quick
end up being here
have a quick pre-show. Have like a quick pre-show before the pre-show.
The pre-show.
The pre-show. Member exclusive. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, Commonwealth Realm, I would love to have him on, but again, time zone differences with him makes it a lot difficult. Not as hard with GameOverJesse. You know, when we all live in the U.S., the worst case is like a 2-hour difference usually. So, we had another $5 super chat come in from Akinda, saying, I actually know what the title is. That's a bold claim, Akinda. That's pretty bold. I think you're yanking our chain. But it says, I know what the title is, and I'll give you a clue. It actually has to do with the hands, and that's all I'm going to give you. I think that is possible. Because there's the hand on the chest, and then Link's hand starts to glow. It having to be called something with the hand wouldn't be surprising. I also think it's almost too obvious. But I mean, is it any more obvious than Breath of the Darkness? I don't know.
What about Sands of Time? Because there's talks about time travel in this.
They won't call it that because of Prince of Persia.
Oh.
There's a game called Sands of Time. I mean, maybe they will, but man, yeah. Akinda or Echidna. You are yanking my chain, correct? I mean, maybe you legitimately do know what the title is. I'm just saying that. It's not like I can verify.
Yeah.
All right. Is that about wrap it up for us today? Are we all good? You guys got anything else you want to talk about?
I think I'm good.
You think you're good?
I'm good.
You're good? All right. Well, that's going to do it then for episode 9 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast. What was that one thing I was going to talk about before I headed out at the end?
Oh, the guest change?
Oh, yeah. So I know some of you guys were expecting Mr. Jeff Grubb to come on tonight. He was all set. Everything was all good. And then he contacted me and decided to cancel his appearance tonight. Not because he's not available. He has a problem. I don't want to go too deep into it, but a problem with somebody who I have defended in the past and me potentially being associated with him. And bottom line is, it's kind of water under the bridge. We talked it out. Things seem fine. He wants me to reach out to him after E3 and probably set up another podcast episode. So it's one of those, we had a very cordial conversation about it. I don't want anyone getting mad at him or thinking anything negative about him. Jeff, I have no problem with Jeff Grubb. I literally am a backer of his on Twitch. I am subscribed to him on Twitch. I give him money. I wouldn't give him money if I didn't think Jeff Grubb was awesome. So yeah, we kind of got it worked out, but unfortunately I couldn't get, I wish these concerns would have been brought up a couple days ago instead of today, because then we could have squashed it and been fine, but it was brought up today, late in the day, so it is what it is. But I do appreciate GameOverJesse coming through in the clutch. And besides, you guys enjoyed this Zelda conversation, right? Because this totally was not what we were going to talk about today. So you guys enjoyed the Zelda conversation, right? Because I could talk Zelda all the time. Mm-hmm. But shout out to GameOverJesse. You guys should definitely go check him out. At GameOverJesse on Twitter. to also technically that same name, GameOverJesse on YouTube. Although it'll be like Jesse in living color in the URL on the channel. Old school name there. You got any content coming out that you want to tease people with? Podcasts, anything?
We're having our Zelda podcast, the Highland Gamescast, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I have a video ready to be uploaded for about a week now, but there's an ad sponsor for it, and contacting them to get it. It's already been approved, but it needs to be like double approved for like the time that it's scheduled for. So that could go out either tomorrow or next week. I have no idea. And we have 2 other videos that are in the works. One script is done. Daniel's going to be recording the audio for it. And the other, right before I came on this podcast, I just finished editing the audio for the other one. So there should be 3 or 4 videos coming out within the next week. So,
it felt kind of weird because then you go like a week between because you had like the podcast and then a podcast, and there was like nothing in between. Yeah, I thought that was a little weird, but I figured there must have been something going on. Like so guys, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Big shout out to you guys for coming out to our streams, subscribing to the channel, watching all my videos this month. We actually have active sponsorships in the works behind the scenes with I think 3 different companies at the moment. Coming out for future video for ad spots. One is actually doing an entire 15-minute featured video, and all this is landing before E3. So I'm obviously very, very busy, and I want to thank you guys because if it wasn't for you guys, I would have not got these sponsorship opportunities. And they reached out to me about it, which is really, really cool. When companies start to recognize, hey, you're an up-and-coming channel, we want to hop on board in the early days. So I like that. So thank you guys for enabling that to happen. You guys know that I'm going to need that money for all the Switch Pros and all the crap we're going to end up giving away at the end of the year.
All 3 versions of Switch.
Yeah, the multiple versions of Zelda.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool that we have some sponsors coming in. I'm not going to talk about them until things are all finalized. Yeah. One of them is finalized, but I have to record the ad for it still. They sent me some stuff that I'm still waiting to arrive. Should be here, I think they said by Friday. So I'll try to get it recorded over the weekend and it'll appear in something next week. That's just one ad spot. Then there's another game that I'm doing a feature on. That's one of them. And then another game that is potentially paying me way more money than they really should. I literally threw them a price for an ad spot that I said that I figured they wouldn't take because I told them I'm too busy. I basically said, look, I could do ad spots. They wanted me to do a review. And I told them, I'm not going to review your game. I'm sorry. I don't have time. I don't have time to get a review in before E3. It's not happening. And they said, but I said, I can do ad spots or I can do featured videos. And I think I said, I can do a featured video, but I really don't have time for this. So like, it's going to be, because I already locked in one and that was like all the time I had to do one. And I was like, God, it's going to be, it's going to be at least this much money for me to even consider it. And that's not because I hate you guys. It's just, I don't have time. So that's what it's going to cost for me to set time aside to pull it off before E3. And then they came back to me and said, well, we'll pay you that. And we'll pay you that just for an ad spot in one video. I'm like, so I went back to them and said, well, I mean, okay, I'll put that same ad spot in 5 videos. Because once I make the ad spot, it's easy to insert. So anyways, we'll see. We're locking that down for final. They're also one of the companies that are giving us some codes to give away during E3. Can't announce the codes yet. Can't announce the game yet because it's a game that isn't out on Switch yet. Got a few of those coming to you, Ray. So, little tease. I know about some things behind the scenes a little bit with some games. Not going to say necessarily Nintendo, because if it was Nintendo, I would probably already be all up on Twitter. Oh my God! Nintendo! And that's probably all I would say. So if you ever see me put out a tweet that's OMG Nintendo, chances are I'm working with Nintendo, because I probably can't say more than that.
Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, I probably can't say anything.
Or he had a heart attack because of something they announced. Well, it's one of those 2 things.
Right. Anyways, shout out to all of our supporters tonight, too, that did all the super chatting. I really appreciate it. I try to make it so you guys don't have to super chat to get my attention. But during things like the podcast, I'm more focused on the conversation and the topics at hand than I am the chat. So that is, unfortunately, during the podcast, like one of the few ways to actually get your stuff in and get your topics added to the cast, especially towards the end as I was adding them more. since this was kind of a last minute change to the podcast, so I didn't have a ton of topics set up ahead of time. And I didn't want to go to Jesse and be like, hey, you got any topics? Because I knew he had his podcast coming up tomorrow, which you guys should absolutely go watch. Don't want to steal any of his thunder. This is really awesome. Be sure to check out everywhere that we guys are. Eric's on Twitter at emo8790. I'm on Twitter at NintyPrime. I'm also Instagram, Nintendo_Prime. I'm also on, obviously, YouTube. I hope you guys know that. If you're listening to the audio version and you don't know that, type in Nintendo Prime on YouTube and you'll find me. And you get to see our really, really cool set that's for E3 that's still not done. But it's done enough that we could show it publicly. A little bit.
Just a teaser.
Just a little bit. There'll be some improvements to it every single week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you on our next podcast next week, episode 10. Finally getting to the double digits. And then hopefully we'll see you at E3. That's the big one. If you can't make it to the podcast or my daily live streams that basically happen Monday through Friday, besides on Wednesdays when we have the podcast, be sure to come to E3, guys. We're giving away $3,500 worth of stuff, maybe even more. I have to actually redo the math and see. It might be more at this point. We also have tons of stuff, by the way. We have lots of games. I can tell you right now, there's over 100 different copies of games being given out. Over 100 different copies of games. So I could just tell you that. Lots of different games, over 100 different copies. We obviously have all this stuff on the back table. I'm not going to go through all of it, but there's accessories back there. There's Zelda merch, there's collector's items, all that jazz. The list is growing every day. We have 8 more items coming in next week that are just massive. Like one of them's like here's the table. It's like this big. And I'll just give you an idea. It's shaped like this. Use your imagination on what that might be. That's right. I'm just giving away free triangles to everybody.
Yes.
Cut out of construction paper.
Cheese. Giant cheese head.
So we got some big items coming in as well for that. And that reminds me, I'm glad this is coming up at the end because there's something else going to happen that I need to go take care of right after the stream. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Catch you guys in the next episode.